Hello and welcome to episode 129 of Celtic Rumours TV, the Bawz and Bovril podcast with your host Mark and myself Paul. Join us later tonight. We'll have Terence, Tier161 from a phone page to the podcast at www.celticrumours.co.uk. You can check out all the links to the podcast in the description below. Don't forget to hit the like button and hit notifications so you know when we're live. And if you like what we do, please hit the subscribe button. On tonight's show, we'll talk about the second stint of Brendan Rodgers' Celtic career as manager. We'll talk about the pros and cons, and so let's get your thoughts. Are you happy with this appointment on the live chat? Please let us know. And first it up, I'll hand over to Mark.
Hey, thanks very much, Paul. A few shout outs to some of the guys for the forum, Tim Alloy, Richie, Glasgow Green, maybe John United Ireland, and JFP. He's away to Birmingham to work, Paul. I think he would not have been coming on the night. Who have we got in the chat? Evening, Bobby, Brian, Mikey, nice to see you, Mikey. Kieran, Kiesel. Kieran just changed your name on the forum for Kiesel just to Kieran R. I noticed that. Is that you just for a name change? Evening, Rod. Thanks very much for joining us as well. As Paul says, the links to everything's in the link tree below. The forum, our Discord, everything in that. Just before we move on, just on the last podcast we done, 522 views on it, and that's absolutely, I don't really know what to say, but just really thanks so much to everybody that listens live, all the lads in the live chat, everybody that listens back to us, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Spotify or anything like that. Really appreciate it. We picked up another 16 subs as well. We're up to 685 subs as well, so things are moving in the right direction for us, but really we do really appreciate it, and all the support for all the guys like Terence, Mikey, we joining that pop on and off and things like that. We really appreciate everything. Right, cheers very much, lads. Hail.
And I didn't even have a rant about Ginger Minge. So
It was probably 521 ginger folk, Paul, just tuning in to see if you were going
probably
to
are
be,
protesting.
if you were going to say against them again.
So news coming from Celtic Football Club at 12 noon today was that Brendan Rodgers is officially the Celtic manager. A big move by the club to bring in a big name manager after Ange left Celtic last week. Great ambitions by Celtic's chairman and CEO Dermot Desmond and Michael Nicholson. Uh, as many project managers were actually linked to the job, this is another great intent by the club to move the club forward. Brendan was quoted today saying that after his appointment, when he was given the privilege of being asked to be Celtic manager again, it was a very simple decision for him and his family. Uh, Brendan Rodgers' first stint at manager record was games 169. He won 118, drew 25, lost 26, win rate of 70%, trophies 7 out of 7. It was also announced that John Kennedy will stay on assistant manager, Gavin Strachan, Harry Kewell, Stevie Woods are all staying in their represented positions, as are Steve McManus and Darren O'Dea, who will continue in the big team. Some fans are happy with this appointment, some fans aren't. After Brendan left mid-season, Johnny's first stint as manager. The North Cove put up a tweet today with a picture of their post after he left first time round, saying, "You traded immortality for mediocrity. Never a Celt, always a fraud." Firstly, though, Mark, are fans right to protest against this disappointment, or is it more anger? Do you think they'll get behind the team, or?
It's not going to achieve anything for a start, Paul. Do you know what I mean? It's not as if Dermot Desmond's got to come out the moor and sack Brendan Rodgers because the Green Brigade are still not happy about it. But we can't do anything about it. I mean, I didn't want him to come in. I didn't want him, as I was saying, right? My head said aye, my heart's still not convinced, but it is him now. And we just need to start getting behind the club again. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the Green Brigade, you know, I like them, Paul. A lot of time for them in the stuff today, and I stick up for them 99% of the time, even when other people are slagging the songs or whatever, flares and stuff like that. But it's just a time to. They're always trying to we back the Celtic support to be all be together against behind the team and behind the club, and then putting that out, it's just kind of putting a wee bit of a dampener on it, because a lot of the people they kind of, if the Green Brigade say it, that's kind of gospel to them. Evening, you, Deef. Thanks for coming in again, mate. Nice to see you.
Well, they're
entitled to their opinion, Paul. But see, to be honest, see if you went individually to every one of them and asked them, is that their actual real opinion? You get what I mean? The majority of them will probably feel like we do. They weren't keen, but he's the manager now, and they'll need to back him, kind of thing. A couple of big signings, first get the season started, get the games started, coming about a few wins, and then beat them in the first derby game, and everything will be forgotten. It will always be sunny. Do you know what I mean?
But what I said the intro there, it's a big move, I think, Mark, by Celtic bringing in Rodgers, because if you look at the names who were linked to Celtic, you've Mercia from Man City, you nuts in from Bobo Glynn to Jesse. I felt he was the most experienced person there with the name of people to take this job. You know what I mean?
Of course, realistic ones, Paul.
Everyone's upset that he left first time, Mark. Do you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? If he's a winner, Mark, you can't say that,
Well, I mean, if Dermot Desmond forgave him for the way you treated him when he left the last time and stuff like that, do you know? I mean, that was he had a lot of closer relationship to Brendan Rodgers than any of the support did, and it's just Paul. It's just business when it comes to that. They kind of guys' levels. I mean, they don't. I mean, they understand the passion for the fans, but it still comes down to money and stuff like that when it gets to the kind of levels of that. But who are the available, realistic ones? Because I don't think Potter was ever really realistic, to be honest. I think he's just going to be in England for most of his career. But Marsh, was he a realistic contender for the job?
I don't think so, Mark. I don't think we were
actually
never really linked to him. You know.
going from what you see on like social media and that, the word is that there was three candidates. One of them was Brendan Rodgers, and that was Dermot Desmond that was pushing for him. The other one,
Murcia and the fella Frack, isn't it? The
Maresca.
fella Frack, isn't
I
it?
think it was. Aye,
Frack from Norwich,
uh,
yeah.
but I wouldn't. I mean, the Maresca one, the guy from Man City, that would have been a huge risk and a huge gamble. I think.
Especially,
I'm glad we didn't get down that route with him.
yeah, because especially Mark, where the club is now, like it's different to when Brendan Rodgers first came in. You know, when
Aye,
he had to do a big rebuild, he had to bring in big name signings. But this is a young squad. But as you said, like with one or two experienced signings, he could actually improve this squad. And one thing you can say about Rodgers as well, Mark, is that he improves players. You know, so could he persuade the likes of Abada, Hatate? Could he persuade them to stay and he'd improve them? You know.
I don't think. I think Abad will be off, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I think because I mean he was.
Kind
Unless
of
he's
saying
got
he's
a.
got boy the cup final,
Aye,
hasn't
but
he?
even just what's been said over the last few months, I know he came out and said he was committed, but he was Israel saying totally different things. And a manager for was even the manager for the team that he used to play for. It was just another manager in the league that he was friendly with, or someone was coming out and saying that he wanted to move on
Was
and
the
stuff.
national coach, what? That was the manager of his previous team, what did I think? Something
Was
like
it
that,
a
was
manager of the
it?
previous team? I wasn't sure, but so there's no smoke without fire. So unless Rodgers comes in and maybe it was his game time he wasn't happy with, Paul, like Giacomakis, maybe Rodgers fancies him and says, "Well, you'll get plenty of game time under me. Just give me a year and see how you feel next summer." We don't know. I mean, the transfers will all be up in the air. I mean, I can't remember. I mean, the Japanese player I sent you the link about that we were meant to be like scouted and open talks with his agent and that about. I can't mind the name now. But I mean, I take it that'll be off the menu completely. Things like that. But I mean, Andrew, Mark Lowe will have a list of transfers that he could pull the trigger on right away, kind of things. You know what I mean? Deals that they've been working on for months, and he'll show Rodgers that list and say, "Is there any name that what do you think?" But there'll also be players on that list that Celtic are saying whether Rodgers likes it or no. Not like the young Norwegian boy, not him, that Odin Thiago guy. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
obvious.
but
That's the scouting team in the Mark Lowell's department that's funding him, and well, no fun him. It's actually Paul. See if you read up on him and that, and Mikey were talking about him yesterday. He's actually a quality signing, Paul.
I've seen him. Yeah,
Aye,
it's like a younger
could he
version
be the
of Callum
number 10?
McGregor, like indeed, you know.
Could he? I know he's only 20-year-old, Paul, but maybe we were saying the other night if Dermot, if Brendan Rodgers is going to go with his old 4-2-3-1, we've not really got a number 10. Could that Thiago boy? Could he be our number 10?
So I don't know, is he more of a box to box kind of midfielder, or is he?
I don't. I but
I think
the way you
Haksabanovic
can.
Mark would fit in there. You know,
Bobby saying he's very Kodagar. Aye, the way he controls the ball in that, Paul, I think he could
I
play the
thought he
number
was like
10.
what I saw of him, yeah, and the way he runs forward, and it's like the potential there, Mark, is unbelievable for him. Like, you know, it really is.
Evening,
You know?
William. Thanks very much for coming in again, mate. Nice to see you.
You know, it really is. But I know I asked you the other night and things like, but people are saying, like, you know, the people who kind of are unhappy about this, like saying, like, we get Terrence's thoughts, you know, because Terrence was kind of falling into that category. He wasn't happy that Rodgers was being potentially coming back, but people are saying he should apologise to the fans for leaving, Mark, and stuff like that. Do you agree with that, or do you think that's just petty stuff? Or
I can understand why fans want him to come out and apologise, Paul, but let's be honest, it's not going to happen. He's not going to come out and plead forgiveness for the Celtic support and say he's made some big mistake in his life. Do you know what I mean? He needs to address it. He definitely needs to address it. But it'll be something along the lines of opportunities in life come along, and sometimes they just the timing's right.
Unfinished business here. So
Aye.
in a way, like
I said that to you the other week.
Said that today, Mark. Though, didn't he? It's a privilege to get asked the second time to come back. Like he probably never thought this
It was like
chance would
when
come around for him again, the way he left last time. You know what I mean?
it was
Like,
like when the papers were all going on about. Mind we know the talk was he turned the job down, he didn't want it, he wanted to take time out and that. Mind I said, I think I even said it on the podcast, Paul. I said, don't be surprised if he's just playing like a PR game.
exactly, yeah,
And
exactly.
then his speech, when he comes out, his speech is like, oh, I was wanting a wee break for the game, but after speaking to Dermot and the opportunity to manage Celtic again was just too good to turn down, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah.
Can
But
I ask you a
we
question?
can't keep hung up on that.
No, it's at all. Like, can I ask you a question though? Like, normally we kind of over the years, I know he doesn't have the kind of same impact now that he does, Mac, but Peter Law is Peter Law, like, and he'll still be in people's ear there just to give him advice and that. Why do you think this time Desmond went with his own gut and not listening to the likes of Mark and Peter about Marcia, and he went with his own decision and with Rodgers?
But the final decision always comes down to him, Paul.
Well, I know that, yeah, but normally he kind
Aye.
of leans to kind of
And I think after the
what
way you
Peter would say to him, like,
but I think they were a bit after the way Eddie Howe treated us and carried on kind of thing. I think we were when it came to Ange, we were a bit. I think we were a bit at the desperate stage, and we were kind of lucky to have that connection, probably with the City group, Mark Lowell, and even Peter Lowell, to know that Ange was out there. But I think it's just a case of I don't know how to put it into words. Dermot Desmond just wanted probably a winner, Paul. Somebody that he knew could just continue dominating the Scottish game, and a manager at the level that with the right backing. I mean, because we could bring in a manager and just no back him, so it's not going to make any difference when it comes to Europe and that. But we've got
that's what I was going to ask you,
manager.
like,
Aye, a
because
top class manager. Getting the backing should take Celtic up in Europe. It definitely should.
because I remember, and you said it last week when we were on the podcast, we were on about this progress that Brendan wants, Mark. He wants us to take us to this next level in Europe. And myself and you were saying, remember Banker saying, oh, we can't compete in Europe, like, you know what I mean? Do you think as well, like, Dermot Desmond wants the club to move in that right direction, that he wants to see Celtic, and maybe that be his legacy as well, that he has brought Celtic to the knockout stages again in the Champions League, and maybe another cup run, Mark,
But
to the final.
But that, I mean, Banker should never have come out and said that. And
Yeah,
the reason he done, but Banker as a chairman of the board had to accept some responsibility for that,
yeah.
because the way the club was being run. Because Banker was a chairman, Paul. Peter Lowell's a non-executive chairman, so they're actually different roles if you look into that.
Yeah.
But everybody in the world knows the Celtic, and our European record over the last with Seville 2003, but it's like it's been ridiculous, embarrassing. Let's be honest about it, Paul. We've not won a
Without a doubt,
knockout.
Mark. Like, I mean, Jesus. I mean, like a club like Celtic, Mark, and in my lifetime, only seen them get to one final, and kind of having one kind of group stage kind of season really was under Gordon Strachan, really, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? They were kind of the best times when I was growing up. But I know we had good nights, Mark, here and there, but beating fucking the likes of AC Milan and Barcelona and stuff like that. But we should have been doing a lot more in Europe, Mark, that we have been doing,
Aye, definitely, Paul. I mean, the thing about it is, Paul, with years of a free run to get into that Champions League, when Rangers were doing the divisions and still scraping their way back up the top division, Paul, and we should have made sure we were in that. Imagine
our signings then, Mark, even when Rangers were down the lower things, our signings still depended on if we qualified for the Champions League.
Aye, and it was a gamble if we were losing players early on in the window, and players were waiting to see. We were keeping them to play the qualifiers before we were selling them on and stuff. It was just poor planning, Paul, for the top level of the club to the way doing. Just the people at the club just seem to be content just to be top dogs in Scotland. I mean, somebody put in the live chat there, Bobby there says the Champions League's out of our reach, right? I mean, that's it. We're not going to see Celtic win the Champions League, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be getting into the last 16, the last 32 maybe, and as Bobby says, down into the Europa and then getting a good run in that. But I think, see, once this, somebody in the live chat might know this. I'm sure I read it and I didn't have time to look it up. I was just on the phone to Mikey there before we went live, Paul. I think that once this new format comes in, that's all done away with about all this drop.
You can't drop down, yeah.
No, aye.
Down, no. This is the last season of that now, Mark. You can't drop down then.
Aye.
Yeah.
So I mean, this talking.
Once you're out, like.
Aye. I mean, don't get us wrong.
Well, I think it'll be then, like, Mark, the teams that finish third in the groups will kind of go into a playoff. I mean, they're going to make the knockout stages kind of bigger. Do you get me? So the teams that finish third then will be in the playoff to get into the last rounds.
Right.
That's and then they'll play the likes of first or seconds, then depending where they're seated. So I think that's the move now. Could be wrong here now, Mark, but I think that's the kind of the way they're looking at.
But you get more games in this new format as well, don't you?
Yeah.
Evening, Michael McKinstry. Thanks very much for coming in again, mate. Nice to see you. So when did they get played back then, Paul? Did that not even get into after Christmas, maybe? With these extra games in the league, in the Champions League?
They would, Mark. I think, yeah. You'll get it after Christmas because you look at it like you can't cramp everything. Like we saw that this season, Mark, cramping games into that World Cup this year. So I don't think you might get January, February. I say that'll be about it.
Evening, Jabber, big man. Nice to see you, bud.
No, I could be wrong in this format, but that's the way I think it is. I read that, Mark, when they were kind of hinting about this new format, and nothing has kind of officially come out about the format yet, but that's one thing that they were looking at was the third place teams would have a playoff for the knockout stages.
I think looking at it, Paul, what they're basically doing is trying to give the so-called wee diddy teams like us, like Celtic, and all these teams that are in
Mark,
the Champions League, but not at the big level.
Like
it's just to get them more. It's just to get them more money.
Been looking at for years, haven't they?
Aye. But I mean, it's just as if UEFA just flung them a bone. We'll give them an extra few games a year, which is another few million quid to them, and they'll be happy. And I think that's what they've done.
This is the reason as well, Mark. It's because they're afraid of their shit over the Super League.
Aye. I think that's still a certainty to happen at some point.
I think so as well, Mark. I think the more and more you see these billionaires, Mark, coming into football, that's their team. Like, you know what I mean?
It's like all these sheikhs and princes fair in the Middle East, and that's like all the big clubs are just becoming their kind of playthings. It's a kind of. I don't know. I'd probably get flung in jail for saying this earlier, but it's like a dick showing competition, isn't it?
Well, what's his name there today? The president of UEFA came out and criticised the Saudi Arabian League, Mark, today. He says they want to progress in football, and they're spending billions on these players at the end of their careers, giving these players billions and billions of money, signing out fees and everything. And he says, but nothing is being pumped into their grassroots. It's only a pleaser to the fans, to get the fans coming to the matches to see maybe the likes of Benzema and Ronaldo playing there for 2 years, and he says, what if they don't come then, Mark, 2 years' time? Where's the young players going to be coming from,
Aye, but you can understand that maybe, Paul, because they've got to get the public interest in it first before they actually, but like start. I mean, it's like Man City. I mean, they took her and they signed Robinho that night, and he thought he was signing for Man United. So as if it's like if you're trying to build the brand, you've got to kind of let the public dictated like what the public's going to see. It's like nobody's going to go and watch a team in Saudi Arabia that's saying, "Oh, here we've just put 50 million pounds or whatever into our youth academy, but our team on the park's drossing now, but it'll be all right five year."
Because like, what's his name? The fella, the Chelsea goalkeeper there, Mendy. The team who finished top of the second division now, Mark, right? They're getting promoted now into the first division. They're spending billions to take him from
Aye,
Chelsea. Do you know the money, even from the lower leagues, man? The money there is just crazy, like, and it really is, like,
aye.
and it's killing the game. Like, they were talking about billions and billions, and Rodgers is going to get the biggest transfer funds we believe that Celtic have is 30 to 40 million mark, and then kind of any player sales then with that. 40 million marks not much in today's football, is it?
No, it's not much in the big picture, Paul, but it's a fucking
You
hell
know,
of a lot of money for a
so
Scottish
for us, yeah,
team.
it
Do you know?
is, yeah.
Aye.
You know, like I could see.
And again, I keep saying it, Paul. It's not down to the fees we pay, man. Pay the wages to players.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just going to ask you that there because there's one of Rodgers' favourite kind of signings and kind of players that he kind of used at Leicester. Marty is actually a free agent. He's on Leicester's released players. He didn't sign a new contract with them. And he was a favourite under Rodgers in that kind of more defensive role. And we're on about our team needs a bit of physique, Mark, and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised, Mark, if we went in for him as Rodgers' first signing.
Get that big Ndidi in, Paul. See no to contract with him as well.
Not yet. No, I don't think he is. No, don't
I
think
thought I
he
seen
is.
him. I thought he was out of contract as well.
You know, like it's not just it's just like, how do I say this, Mark? It's the person that Rodgers is, Mark. He's known in football that he be able to attract these players to Scotland. You know what I mean? Bring these big name players. You know.
Aye, the players. Aye, players. It's like it's down to it's down to reputation, Paul. And
yeah, that's the word. Reputation.
He's a world known. Everybody that knows everybody that knows anything about football knows who Brendan Rodgers is. If you even going back his time at Liverpool, do you know what I mean? His time at Celtic, two of the biggest clubs in the world. So everybody knows who he is. Players, as you says here, Paul, players will come to Celtic for the chance to work with a manager either calibre A Brendan Rodgers.
And
even Ed Martin, thanks very much for coming in, mate. Same to you, Des. Nice to see you, bud.
No, it is. I think his reputation. Yeah, Bobby is saying that Marty's a big, strong player. I think I think we'll actually see that under Rodgers. Mark, he'll bring in one or two strong players just to bring more kind of physique, I think, into the team.
Bit of physicality to the team.
Yeah, especially to the midfield.
Well, as long as we said we needed that, Paul.
You know, I think, Mark, looking back, like under Ange's era as Celtic manager, I think that was our only kind of real criticism of the Celtic team was the physique. You know what I mean? I know
aye.
He's saying we didn't think, but we always said in matches, Mark, and we always said in the derbies is we just get pushed off the ball.
Aye.
You know
That's all they done. Just went with like Ryan Jack, Arfield, just hatchet men in the middle of the park and just bullied us. And we couldn't deal with it.
You know, do you think we're going like with the likes of John Kennedy staying now and Gavin Strachan, and like, I know some people said the manager should bring in his own people, but I actually think it was Rodgers that wanted to keep Kennedy there himself because of their previous relationship.
I think so. And maybe Kennedy was waiting to see who was getting the job and whether he had a job at Celtic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Rodgers has been like, I've got obviously, as you said, he's got a previous relationship with him. And Gavin Strachan, I've said it. Gavin Strachan's one of the best in the business.
Mark, how many people came after him last season for the data analysis? Like, you know what I mean?
Aye.
You know,
some lower league club down in England even wanted him as manager, didn't they?
Like, we're looking, and I know I've been criticising Kennedy, Mark, but I criticised Kennedy as a manager. when he was a manager. I believe he's a good coach, and that's the way I think he should be as a coach. But like 30 years, I believe he's been at the club, and he's overseen 20
Aye.
trophies. Like it's some record, Mark. You know what I mean? It really is. You know, you know.
Aye, I mean, when you think about it, many medals has John Kennedy got?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but like we're always
Aye.
talking about the players and like Cal McGregor and James Forrest and stuff like that. But when you look, like Kennedy has actually been a big part of this recent domination by Celtic Football Club as well. You know, and like,
Paul's,
do
I've
you
said
think?
before to you, coaches can only do what the manager tells them to do. It's the manager that sets all the stuff up, and then the coaches, they carry out the manager's like wishes and add their own wee tweaks to stuff.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? So, I
Like,
mean, any time Kennedy's took heavy grief, Paul, really it's all when the manager's been taking heavy grief.
like, do you think we're going to see kind of like when Rodgers first came in, Mark? He saw that our sports science department wasn't. It was basically non-existent back then, Mark, and he brought in all these Premier League starters. He kind of started the ball rolling for Celtic Football
Oh,
Club in these areas.
Ronnie started that, Paul.
But he took it on then to the next level, though, didn't
Aye,
he?
aye.
Yeah.
But I
When
mean,
Ronnie brought
Ronnie's,
in the fitness and conditioning, didn't he?
aye, the kind of sports
Yeah,
science stuff and dietitians and stuff like that.
yeah.
But Rodgers
You know,
took it probably like the Premier League level.
yeah. But
And that, I mean, that's what Celtic need to try and do, Paul. Like act like a Premier League club. Do you know
mhm,
what I mean? I mean, I'm not talking about the stuff like crazy stuff like your Man Cities and that are doing, but Celtic's training facilities should be as good as Man City's, Paul. Do
mhm.
you get what I mean? Celtic's
What is like
stuff like that. Do you know
Lennox
what I
Town
mean?
like now, Mark? Now, what is it like now? Is it aged,
Uh,
or have they done it up, or?
for what I've heard, Paul, it can do with a bit of sprucing up, modernisation, but it's no like it's not. I wouldn't say it's
Yeah.
shabby or anything like that. But Celtic should be like, and especially just in Scotland, even we should be at the forefront of this kind of stuff. It's like mind Rodgers wanted the big air dome thing,
Yeah, but I
and
was
that
going to ask you
and
that
that
now
thing
because
that Dortmund
that,
used that fires the balls out and stuff like
yeah,
that.
because that was one of the conditions that they said they'd do to Ange, that they'd build some kind of big, huge indoor facility in Bovril. Like, do you think all these plans will still go ahead? That Rodgers is there now?
I don't see why no, Paul. Because again, Paul, see the kind of decisions. These decisions shouldn't be done to the manager. The
Exactly. Yeah.
decisions should be
Yeah.
done. That's a director of football's job. A manager shouldn't be worrying about upgrading the
I,
training facilities. The
I was
club
going to say
itself
to there
should. The
as
club
well, and
itself should be doing that without
it
the
was
manager
something
having to.
I was thinking about the other day, Mark, in the director of football, and it, do you think maybe Mark Lawless that role, director of football?
I think he's doing a lot of the roles of director of football, Paul. I
Yeah.
do.
You
He
know,
seems
I don't
to,
think he's
and
just
I've
chief
not got a
scout,
problem
like,
with
you know what
that.
I mean?
I've not got a
You know?
problem with that, Paul. I
No,
mean,
I don't either.
he's been
Because it
that
takes the
involved,
pressure off the manager. Do you know
and
what I
he's
mean?
been
Let
that
him.
involved in the top, in the very, very, very top level of the game with Man City for years. So I really, because people on the forum say to me all the time, because I keep harping on about getting a director of football, who would you bring in that? And it's a hard one, Paul, because it's like, well, you look at the likes of Ajax. When you watched, like, I know they're not there now, but like Van der Sar and Mark Overmars as players, you would never you can't watch a player say he'll be a good director of football.
Exactly.
Do you get what I mean? He'll be a good stuff. Because of the actual job, what the job entails. It's a hard one to pick unless it's
One
somebody
of the
that's already
best,
doing that job at another club.
and I know he got a bit of stick when he was at Manchester United, but he was never really a manager, Mark, was Radnick. Ralph Radnick. He's supposed to
Aye,
be one of the
aye,
best football
aye.
operations fellows around him, you know? Ralph Radnick. You know what I mean? Like I see a lot of players there, like Manchester United, there, like the likes of Rio Ferdinand and stuff like that, putting their names forward. They don't have a clue, Mark, how
No,
a football operations thing
but how
thing
do you
runs like
know?
that. Like, I don't. I'm just fucking
That's what,
saying.
but that's
You know what
what
I mean?
I'm saying. That you would never have thought that Mark Overmars and that's people like that.
We,
Do
we,
you know
we
what I
never
mean?
thought Mark Overmars too was touchy inside the office, did we?
But it's hard to say, oh, he'd make a good director of football because just because of that, what the actual job
Sure, didn't
entails.
Rodgers tip
He wanted
Kennedy
Kennedy to
that
get the
time, yeah.
job. Aye.
Yeah. Like, we actually don't know, like, what knowledge fucking Kennedy has, Mark. You know what I mean? Maybe, like, we're always saying a good coach isn't a good manager, but he could have a wealth of experience that we actually don't know about behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Look, he's worked under some of the best managers Celtic's had.
Mm-hmm.
He's watched some of. He's watched all these managers come and go, and he's been about the block, round the block more than once. You know what I mean? I don't I think I've said it before. I think Kennedy's just the type of guy, Paul, that he maybe doesn't fancy being the manager. He prefers being a coach, and there's a wee bit of camaraderie. You're still kind of seen as one of the boys. You're out there having a laugh and a joke with the players and that. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think maybe that's where kind of the line kind of drew with himself and Lennon, Mark, that maybe he like wasn't learning stuff off Lennon, that how advanced the club came and how limited actually Neil Lennon was in management, because outdated is what I'm kind of saying, like, you know, in modern football, in the likes of sports science and stuff like that. Like, we saw times like Gavin Strachan, Mark, with his notepad at the side, I think not even using the tablets, you know.
Aye, Lennon was just he never tried to. As you said, Lennon never tried to learn anything, Paul. I think he was just always kind of relied on the balling and shouting, trying to fire players up. But it's like Ken Alex Ferguson would be a successful manager in this day and age.
Exactly. You know, but folks in Denmark knew what he was doing then, though, folks. It's like you could say, really, it'd be like Guardiola. Guardiola always changes his assistants, Mark.
But that's what I was going. That's what I was going to say. Aye, Ferguson always every couple of years he refreshed things. He changed his number 2.
I remember that time when they were kind of struggling in Europe, and Ferguson always kept playing the 4-4-2, and he brought in that fella Carlos Carreras. Remember him from Portugal?
Aye, the Portuguese
and he brought
guy.
in him then, yeah, you know.
And that's a. But I'm talking about Paul, like a good manager, but a good
exactly
leaves it to the coaches to do stuff kind of thing. But Lennon was like that kind of old school manager.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? The ball and shouting, trying to fire players up, but not actually helping the players to become better players, become better footballers.
I still think
like
though, Rodgers will bring in kind of maybe 1 or 2, Mark. I said it there last week, the fella Lyons and the other fella that kind of have been with him for years. I still think they'll come with him, and I think it's no harm either in maybe Curtis Davis not coming in, Mark. You know what I mean? That he has a different views from a different assistant as well. You know, like not sticking with the same kind of people all the time. You know, following obviously the assistant follows the manager. You know,
the thing with that as well, Paul. See, like we're saying with Ferguson, he changed his number 2s. Maybe now in the modern game, it's like you have the 2 or 3 guys, and it's like they kind of it's their voices. Evening, Terence.
Good evening, gents. How are we now?
I'm all right, mate. Thanks very much for coming on, Terence.
Just I don't know if you were kind of listening to Terence, but we were just, as you know, we're talking about Brendan Rodgers, but you weren't in favour from the start. Brendan Rodgers coming. How do you feel now about today's announcements? Are you coming around, or are you still kind of?
He shouldn't be allowed inside the door of the place. Shouldn't be allowed inside the door of the place. Not even near the place. I can't believe they've heard him. Can't believe it. He should. To be honest, Paul, him and the Spurs manager shouldn't be allowed inside the gate of the place again. They both walked out in the club. It's as simple as that. They both walked out in the club. He walked out. The only reason for this, the reason he's worse than the other fella is he walked out during the season. He left Celtic high and dry. Only for Neil Lennon, Celtic could have been in a world of trouble. And now it's people are just kind of going, it's pretty all right. And then you have all this nonsense stuff. Celtic's a great club. It's this, it's that. Well, you buggered off, like. you didn't mind leaving for Leicester City. Like, it wasn't as if you were going to Man United or Man City or Liverpool, back to Liverpool. You might have kind of said to yourself, okay, fair enough. He went to Leicester, like.
But is that like, is this the way we are now as a club? I mean, if we're going to have any success up in Scotland, managers or players, the law of the Premier League or Spain, is it just too big for managers and players to say no? And that's just the reality where Celtic are, Terence. You know, two, 3 years max, we get out of managers.
That's a very fair point, Paul. Well, I don't have an issue if Rodgers finished out the season with Celtic, for argument's sake, back then, and left. I'd say fair enough, and it was kind of on the cards that he was leaving, but he didn't. He left. He just left overnight. He left like a young fella after getting his leg over, sneaking out at 3 o'clock in the morning before the girl's father comes home. That's what it felt like. You know what I mean? And it's like the other guy, who's the Spurs manager now. He couldn't answer a straight question. But these guys can talk about, Danny McGrain or, God rest his soul, Tommy Burns, and looking at the fans straight in the face and knowing that they're going to wherever they're going. Like, just have the decency to come up and say, I've got an offer, it's too good to refuse, I'm leaving. That, there has to be some level of that. You can't just like sneak out in the middle of the night and then expect to come back and everyone go, look, I probably made a bit of a mistake. I've no job now, but I'm coming back to this iconic club. I love this club. I'm a big supporter. Well, you're not. You buggered off as quick. You left for a Leicester City. Like, I know people will argue that they won the Premier League, but so did Blackburn Rovers. Like, so like, I mean, he left to go back to the Premier League as quickly as he could. The Australian guy has done the exact same. Neither of the two of them should be allowed anywhere near Celtic Park again, in my opinion.
Mark, do you want to come in there and that?
Oh, he's entitled to his opinion, do you know what I mean? I can understand, as I said earlier, I can understand why people feel like that. But if it looked like it was going to be Rodgers, Terence has just not been happy about it.
Oh, I know that, yeah.
Like, if you're to say, Paul, like, as a coach or as a manager and everything else, he was excellent when he was at Celtic. Okay, maybe tapered off near the end ever so slightly, but he won everything he went in. Maybe Europe obviously was they were poor in because they tried to go toe-to-toe with teams they weren't able to do, and as did the Spurs manager, they weren't able to do it either. But what I'm trying to say is, like, if you're asking me about how good he was as a coach and manager and everything else, I'd say yeah. But if Rodgers had left in the normal circumstances and played out the season and said, look, I've got an offer from Leicester, too good to refuse.
But what we kind of learned then later on, Terence, that you and myself, Mark, were talking about last week, was that the relationship at the time between himself and PLR was kind of non-existent. Do you know what I mean? Like they weren't talking to each other in the corridors and stuff like that. The environment wasn't there. It could have all ended up tits up by the end of the season. Do you know what I mean? If he would have stayed on,
But there's Michael's staying there as well. No, that Michael McKinstry, did Leicester no say to Rodgers it's now or never when he took the job?
They did say that. They did say that, yeah.
And that's the thing about it. Maybe, I mean, it's like, if I don't go and take this job, then I mean, everybody knew Rodgers was off at the end of the season, just because of the whole atmosphere about the club between him and Lowe and stuff like that. But if he was, what jobs would be? It's not as if he was leaving and saying, "Oh, I need a break for the game." Blah blah blah. It's like, well, if it's either now or never. If I don't go to this job the now, I might not get a job in the summer. But next time the next season starts, I'm waiting till Christmas to see who's getting sacked before I get a job. That's the only. I mean, I'm not sticking up for him. I'm just saying that's the kind of way you've got to maybe think about it. Let's not be kidding about something as well, by the way. Go back to Martin O'Neill. Right, Martin O'Neill left. Martin O'Neill left to look after his wife that was sick, and many months later he was Aston Villa manager.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's things like that. It's just there's that kind of there's a lot of deviousness at that kind of level in football, isn't there?
I think, Mark, it's just the fact that whether it's Rodgers or the Spurs manager now, it's just like, I don't understand why a guy can't just come out and say, I've got an offer, it's too good to refuse, I've got to go. It's the whole cloak and dagger thing, and just not willing. Like, you're there outside and you're there clenching your fists to the fans and banging your chest and doing everything else. And as I said, talking about Danny McGrain and the history of the club and God rest his soul, Tommy Burns and all these bits and pieces. It means nothing. It means nothing because they don't think like that. In my opinion, they don't think like that. They literally just gone like a bullet. You know, gone like an absolute bullet at the first opportunity. Like,
Do you think though, like in his second stint terms, do you think maybe Desmond, like 3-year contract, and Desmond kind of got kind of guarantees that Rodgers would stay here for these 3 years and not jump ship and stuff like that?
well, I think it's what actually, Paul, what Mark had said there a while back, because I was even saying to you that they have to kind of get rid of this 12-month contract, rolling contract. I can understand it if they want to do it for the first. I can understand for 1 year. Yeah, but in a sense, it's Celtic, for all intents and purposes, taking a gamble, or having to take a gamble to go, well, if someone does approach us in a year and a half time, he's got a year and a half left in his contract, they have to pay us money. They have to pay us a reasonable amount of money to take him out of this. One. And then secondly, obviously, I know, it's basically not a case that he can't just down tools and head for the hills, like, because his 12-month contract is over, like. You know, I obviously Celtic have to be seen to be. But what I would say, Paul, is Celtic also have to be seen on this side of it as well. And I agree with your point, what you said a few minutes ago. But Celtic also have to be a bigger entity in this. They need to step up as well. They need to stop having a situation that it's managing a football club like it was 20 years ago, 15 years ago, or 10 years ago. You know, the Celtic need to come along. If they want Rodgers in there, they've got him in. They've obviously he's come in and said, look, I need to make sure I have this amount of money to spend on players, or this thing to be done, or this thing to be done. I don't have an issue with any manager coming in and saying that, because at times it was nearly like the biscuit tin. At times under law, if he could save 500,000 on a player, and he thought that guy might be better than that guy, he's willing to take the risk of the lesser guy rather than, and they've had numerous examples of that with your John McGinns and Ivan Toney and the Italian lad are prime examples of that. But I mean, so I think Celtic need to step up as well. But I look, as regards Rodgers, I wouldn't have him as the manager. I just wouldn't. But that's only personal opinion, and everyone's entitled to. I know there's people for and against it, and I understand that.
I was in the same boat with you, Terence. You know what I mean? When Rodgers left, but when I looked at the managers who we were supposedly linked to, he was the best out of the lot. Do you know what I mean? And I think, as Celtic fans, we just have to put that aside. And he's here now, and I know you will anyway. You just get behind the team, and hopefully things work out. You know.
Listen, I'd be 100% behind Celtic. I just want the manager to just manage the team. I don't want him coming on telling me it's an iconic club and he supported it since he was 3 years of age, and he's kissing badges and jumping, banging chests and doing all the rest of the nonsense. Manage the team. I don't even want to hear from the manager. I genuinely don't even want to hear from the manager.
Do you think though, and I said this to you, Mark, the other day, like, considering, like, I know Rodgers will be aware of this negativity going wrong. We saw the Green Brigade today with their tweets and stuff like that, and he'd be well aware that some fans are unhappy. Did it take balls in his side or to come back to Celtic? You know,
I think it has, Paul.
When he could have waited, Mark.
But Paul, see, to be honest, you can say it's took some balls, but you can also say we know what his ego's like. He's a brass neck sod.
Say that, yeah. I was just going to say that as well.
Aye. So it did take some bollocks to do what he's done, Paul. But also, I'm not surprised just because he who he is. Hold on, just FSW. Thanks very much for joining us. Nice to see you, Sean. Was that McCluskey? Nice to see you, Sean. Thanks for coming in, mate.
But you have to remember as well, Paul. Like, without reiterating the point, look at the way he left. Yeah. He didn't bother him. It didn't bother him one iota, like, and he was willing to take away. He was willing to take whoever he could take with him to make sure he was okay. Not Celtic,
would Neil Lennon have done that?
No. Neil Lennon would speak. I feel
Neither,
you know.
neither would Ronnie Dahlia. He wouldn't have left either. He got no backing when he was there, in my opinion. I know it's
I
slightly off
agree.
the point.
I totally agree with that, Terence.
He got no backing at all, and he was a guy who was mad for it. And look at all the youth players he brought through: McGregor, Tierney, Hoyer. 3 examples. Sorry, I'm off.
Mhm.
I'm off slightly off the point, but I don't think Lennon would have left at all in a million years. Lennon is Celtic to the core. He said he had one bad season. He hasn't helped himself after it. But if that's apparently him going on doing the whatever the tweeting or the Facebook thing or whatever that is making the comments, if that's him, that's not helping himself.
But he actually fucked up today, innit? Did you see that, Mark? No.
No, what?
With the Green Brigades, he actually took down the tweets and put up a different one. When the Green Brigade put out that tweet about the banner, you know, he put up, they're starting again, like on the manager's back. I had to deal with with the Green Brigade in my last season as Celtic manager, and then he took it back out. Previous managers had to freaking.
That Siamese boy account, aye.
Yeah, he put it up. I had bad dealings with the Green Brigade myself and stuff like that. And then he took off the tweets and he changed and he put down previous managers, you know.
Oh,
So
must have been on the bevy then.
he was probably pissed going for the interview for the.
Man, I mean, don't get us wrong. A lot of I said hatred towards Lennon. Would you call it hate? A lot of fans still hold against him, losing the 10 in a row and stuff like that. But again, time's a great healer. I've said it before. We've spoken about on the podcast, like how we'd like to see like statues of like iconic players or iconic events or that, all up the Celtic way. And without a doubt, if we were doing that, Neil Lennon at some point in time, whether he's alive, I'd like to wait till people are dead before they get statues and stuff like that. Neil Lennon's quite entitled to stuff like that. He's still.
Yeah.
I don't hate Neil Lennon. I hate him for being a bit of an arsehole. To be don't hate him, but I dislike him for being a bit of an arsehole. But
After
he gave
the
me
event,
some of the happiest moments in my life as a Celtic fan. Do you know what I mean? Celtic beating Barcelona and stuff like that.
he's an
I
iconic
don't
figure,
hate
Mark.
him, but aye, and you can't fault him for taking the job. Do you know what I mean? But it just
He didn't get the backing either.
he should never have got it the second time around. So I don't blame Neil Lennon for that. I blame Peter Lowell and Dermot Desmond for that. I don't blame Neil Lennon for losing us 10 in a row. I blame the board and Neil and Peter Lowell.
But you also have to, Mark, hold a lot of players accountable. Like, would you, for argument's sake, would you take Christie back? Would you take Ira back? Would you take Edward back? Would you take all these guys that basically Encham, all these boys that down tools? All these boys down tools when Lennon was manager that year. None of them wanted to be there. It just happened to be that they were all in the last years of their contract. It'd have been better off if Celtic were going for 8 in a row rather than 10 in a row that season. Because the chances are
how's Ayer doing in England?
I don't even watch it, no, Mark.
Anybody in the live
The
chat?
thing
No?
really, Mark, he's the kind of hasn't really kind of been playing really down there. Actually, at the moment, I don't know is he injured or what, but he hasn't been getting a lot of game time anyway.
But you know, all these boys like that, they all thrown Lennon under the bus, like, and he had nowhere to go. Like he had no backing from over above him with regards to players. He wanted obviously that Ivan Toney that time, and it was all in peership. I'm not making excuses from what he's done after they lost the 10 in a row is my problem, not a year the 10 in a row. But you know, there was a lot of players back then that were at fault. And like my argument would be, would you want any of those players back? And that's why I liken it to Rodgers and the Spurs manager. Because they basically to me just left the club high and dry, like didn't give a monkeys like.
That's a good point, really, Mark, isn't it?
Aye, that's a good point. But Miles, evening, Miles, you're a stranger. Where have you been? Nice to see you in again, mate. Hope you're keeping well. You've been out injured.
You know, yeah, I was thinking that because he hasn't been.
Ayer would have been a good player under Ange for his, wouldn't he? The Spurs manager is Terence calls him. The jumper is JFP calls him. Just that kind of ball playing centre half kind of thing. I think Ayer would have shown out under that system, but
yeah, sure. I don't know. It's just. I suppose the problem is what I think Paul was alluding to there a few minutes ago. I don't know how true or false it was, but they put out a list of 4 managers that Celtic had allegedly spoken to. And if it is accurate, like, I mean, 2 of them are just farcical, to say the least, if it was, like, to suggest that
Yeah,
they
but
spoke to
surely, like,
the Ipswich manager and then the fellow who used to be the Norwich manager, they're kind of scratching your head going, you can't
what
be
I
serious,
think,
like.
right? Like, if you look back, right, after the Rodgers first stint as manager, right, and when he walked out, is our process for recruiting managers actually a joke? You know what I mean?
What is totally.
We gave Neil Lennon the job after the cup final. We spent nearly 10 weeks chasing Eddie Howe, our only kind of real target at that time. I think we were lucky we had these connections with Man City to get. And then our the second time round, we have Rodgers, and then we have another Manchester City candidate, Terence. You know what I mean? It's like,
But it's
so we
it's the speed of the process, Paul, that makes me laugh.
you know.
It's the speed of the process to me that makes it laughable. Like, there is no way that the Celtic board didn't know that the Spurs manager was going to Spurs.
But I think I actually said it to you, and you were on the podcast that time, and I know, like, it's all hearsay, like, but I think they knew back then, Mark, when
Rodgers was at the semi-final, sure.
Final with Rangers and Rodgers, was he testing the walls with the Celtic fans? Then did we actually make contact with Rodgers back then? You know, I really think we did.
Who invited him up, Paul? Was he up as a guest?
Yeah.
Was he up as one of like Dermot's guest? I mean, as I've said as well, Paul. People after Rodgers left Celtic, it was like the falling out between him and Peter Lawwell was like on a professional level. Peter Lawwell and his wife's been out staying in Rodgers' home. Is it Malaga or in Spain it is or something? They've been out there and stayed with him at times in that over the last few years. So there's still kind of personal.
Because, like, you can't
relationship
really,
there.
Mark, like, you know what I mean? Because, like, as you said there about Neil Lennon, time's the healer. I mean, we're only kind of listening to the media saying that this rift is still there between himself and Peter Law, like, when it probably isn't. Do you know what I mean?
He wouldn't come to the club, Paul. He wouldn't come to the club if it was there. He's not going to tarnish. He's not going to tarnish himself by coming to Celtic, and then there's going to be all at war. You have to remember, Paul, as well too. Most of the tabloids, if you want to call it that, in Scotland, are completely, in a sense, anti-Celtic, and they will do whatever they can to disrupt it. Like, there was a fella had put an article up the other day or the last time, about Rodgers' first time as manager was a failure. Some journalist had put something up.
I saw that.
He played in 7 competitions and won 7.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is, if you look at any of the headlines, it's normally they're trying to downgrade something or upset the Celtic apple cart, and then you like you see, Rangers are signing a player for 8 million, but if the small print is they're probably going to give him 2 million now, and the next 6 million over installments over the next couple of years to get to this and this and this and this and this.
They can't even afford Tillemans.
I know, but this is what I'm saying is the journalists up there are painting Celtic in this light and painting something else in this light, and they're basically trying to hit a hornet's nest. They're trying to get a reaction. Like, there's no way that Peter, like, everybody's saying, oh, what about Lawwell and Rodgers coming back? First of all, Lawwell and Rodgers will have nothing to do with each other. He'll be dealing with Mark Lawwell. He'll be dealing with Michael Nicholson. He'll be dealing with Chris. Is it what's the finance guy?
Any deals with Lawwell will be like meeting after games in the lounge and do you know, a wee handshaking, a blather about the game. Evening at Doyle, thanks very much for coming in again, mate. Nice to see you.
Peter Law will be well aware of what the expectation is. To think that people will be thinking that him and Rodgers are going to be X, Y, and Z. He's in that profession far too long to be caught out with that. And as I said, he will have next to nothing to do with any major decisions to do with the football club that Rodgers is involved in. It's Michael Nichols, Mark Lawwell, and the chief finance guy. That's it. Like
Here's,
people are the assumption that Lawwell's going to be in the middle of all this and calling all the shots. Michael Nichols is the CEO, not Peter Lawwell.
I
His time
think
is come and gone. Like,
I think they kind of made that clear though in terms with this Brendan Rodgers appointment that Lord kind of wanted to go down the Man City route again with Martial, and you know what I mean. It was Nicholson that kind of stuck to his guns as well and went with. I suppose he don't have a fucking choice either. You know, if you're going to go against the owner of the club, Mark, you know what I mean. You're gone out the door, really, aren't you? You know.
I'd say it's down to Dermot Desmond, Paul. Dermot Desmond says whoever he wants is in. That's it. Like, I don't even think, with the greatest respect, it means anything. Michael Nichols might say he prefers this candidate or this candidate, because there's the famous one of when years ago, and I think Mark, you might remember this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But when Martin O'Neill came in, the powers to be, the head of the chairman and all them, they apparently wanted Gus Hiddink, I think it was, and Dermot Desmond was no. Martin O'Neill's coming in. I want Martin O'Neill. So he obviously he obviously has the main say, because I think it was Gus Hiddink they were pushing for him to come in at the time, and Desmond was like, no, I want Martin O'Neill. And basically, it was kind of nearly in a sense, it's my ball. I'm going home if you don't pick it. You know. So he says goes basically.
He's a majority shareholder, so really, it's going to be that.
My next question, then, is right. Like, this is Rodgers' second stint as manager, and normally, kind of, when a new manager comes in, you give him some leeway. Does he have leeway now this time round, Mark? Like, or do you expect, like, no, Rodgers, we want to treble, like, you know what I mean? We want to make progress in Europe, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is your second shot at Celtic Football Club.
Oh, I mean, what would you rather have, Paul? Like a good European runner or the League Cup? And that's the thing. That's one of the things we've got in Scotland. We spoke about this before as well. The thing about it is, see, if Celtic don't win it, there's a good chance that they're going to win it, and that's not acceptable. Whereas down in England, it's okay. I mean, that there's no kind of, even down to the rival, even if
they can afford to put out their second string teams down there in the cup matches, Mark. That's the problem up here, isn't it?
Up here, if Celtic get put out the League Cup, or even worse, like lost to Rangers in the League Cup, or even in the final, of that, it would be a complete meltdown for the Celtic support. But if you're doing stuff in Europe, you've got, you know what I mean? Europe's got to be the aim, Paul, for the money, and B, for even the prestige yet. Because the money just keeps us miles and miles and miles in front of anybody else in Scotland, which is the main thing, really. That's where bread and butter. But the European stuff has got to be the aim. You know, it really has. That's got to be rebuilding our reputation in Europe. And it's all right, all this, as I've said, all this, like the birthday care pish about people, one of my favourite stadiums to go and play in and that. But because you're all coming here and playing in front of all these crazy fans and then beating us.
You need to make it horrible. Celtic need to make Parkhead a horrible place to go play football.
Aye. I've said this before. I watched a thing the other week. It was Man United went out to play Galatasaray back in the 90s.
Yeah.
The welcome to hell thing and that, and like the Man United players. I mean, I'm not meaning to go that full hoggy. That's, I mean, a lot of nastiness goes around Turkey, but the Man United players end up getting attacked by the police and everything over there. But I want them to come to the ground with a kind of fear. I don't want them to come and say, "Oh, the atmosphere's great," but a wee part in the heat birthday care pishes.
But is that why then, so Mark, right? Like, we're on about the North Corv extending their area within Celtic Park. You know, they want the end stand. You know, they want the full stand. You know, like, should we test the water so maybe in Europe to bring that atmosphere with them, to have that section in Europe? You know, because you don't get the season. You're not. Are you not guaranteed your seat with the season ticket for Europe? That's separate, isn't it? Or
no, tickets get sold. You need to buy them within a certain time. You're guaranteed.
Yeah, should we like what Celtic should do, like to just test it, Mark, and bring this kind of atmosphere that you're on about. You see Brucey Dortmund fans. We even see it over in Poland with Lega fans. They have their own section in the stadium that's theirs for the European matches, and they build us this big, huge banner. Should we test the waters with that? Do you think going down the line for the
people weren't going to get up their seats for that, Paul?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but for Europe though, can't they? You know, if you say
No,
in
but
Europe, like this
if
team's got.
If I've got a season ticket there, Paul, I've got the first
First
shout,
refusal, like
first
Oh, you
dibs
get
on
first
that.
refusal on that seat then, is it?
Aye,
Yeah,
it's
I
my
get
seat.
you.
Aye, said you need to buy the package before a certain date, or their tickets will go
Mm-hmm.
in like the general sale.
Public sale then, yeah, I get you.
Aye. But I don't I see the full stand thing, Paul. I can't ever really see that working at Celtic Park in the next like the foreseeable future. But what I
There's
would like
too
to see them
much
doing
kind
is,
of there's too much to kind of do in such a little time to get that done, isn't there? Like as you're
aye.
saying there, season tickets and everything like that, you know.
But what I would like to see them doing is, Paul, putting see where the Green Brigades in that bottom corner down that end. Just put another standing section the opposite end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And give that you've got the Green Brigade at one end, and you've got the boys at the other end, and let
Mm-hmm.
the two. Do you know what I mean? The two standing sections get the place rocking. Just another wee corner at the other side of the stadium.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that, Terence? Yeah.
yeah, I do, 100% agree with that. That'd be ideal. But because you also have to remember, Paul. Like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and Mark's point is right. If you have a season ticket, you have first refusal on the European match. But you have to remember, Paul, like if Celtic and Rangers are qualifying for the Europe and continually playing as poorly as they are, is it going to become a situation where they go back to having to pre-qualify? And Celtic's track record isn't exactly overly hot at that either. Like, so to be necessarily saying putting one whole stand, or I understand what you mean though. One particular stand for the European games. When Celtic's record is pretty abysmal at qualifying, it's just for the European thing, especially the Champions League at times. You couldn't really allocate a certain section like that for it because obviously people are sitting there. But yeah, I think the thing where they have the north curve, is that a crowd, and obviously the Green Brigade one side, and as Mark said, the other crowd at the other side of it standing. That would certainly generate a good atmosphere because you're going to be guaranteed that they're going to be there for the matches, regardless, the European matches in particular. But they're going to be there, and they'll definitely get a good buzz going around the ground.
Mm-hmm. Like the way Rodgers is talking, he wants Europe is his catalyst, Mark, right? He wants to bring Celtic into Europe, get him to the knockout stages, or what Bobby was saying earlier, finish third and get a good one in Europe. And to do that, like, positions need to be strengthened. And there's a post there from Bobby, Mark, I know, can you find it? He says we need a goalkeeper, left back, a centre back, a CDM, a right winger, and a striker, and that would be great. Is there any players, Terence, that you think maybe in this team that could struggle on the Rodgers? Myself and Mark spoke last week about it. There could be a few players that could struggle under the way Rodgers plays in this team.
The as
I
much
think
as
most of me need that. And I'm a
yeah,
great
well, I do too. Yeah, I think another one, and I hope it doesn't. But with the inverted fullback thing, if they obviously change it, I would fear, and I'll probably get lambasted for this. I would fear for Greg Taylor.
Yeah, I said the same to you, Mark, last week.
Aye, I think Bernaby's more suited to.
Yeah,
well, as I said,
overlapping.
But Rodgers might have changed his system. I don't know. I've said that to you all night, Paul. But
Well,
I
one
think
thing I
Bernaby
said to
would be
you,
more
Mark,
suited
about
to his
Rodgers
system.
in Leicester.
Hold on, Paul.
It's
Good night, Brian. Thanks for
didn't-
coming in, Brian. See you
I
later.
didn't see Rodgers do with Celtic when he was first there, Terence, is he changed his system a lot to different teams.
Yeah,
I know
but you
he
have
to do that a lot down in Celtic, like with lower teams, but we know now that Rodgers can change his formation, you know.
but Paul, any of the managers that were at Celtic, like you'd hear people going on about how good Rodgers was and how good the Spurs manager was and how good this fellow was. Look at it. Like one of the best managers Celtic ever had in Europe was Gordon Strachan.
Mm-hmm.
But Gordon Strachan cut his cloth accordingly. Neil Lennon cut his cloth accordingly as well. They didn't necessarily go, I'm playing Barcelona, I'll go toe-to-toe with them. Or I'm playing AC Milan, I'll go toe-to-toe with them. They were going, okay, well, I need to be pragmatic here. I need to change my formation. I'll just play maybe Samras up front by himself and have at least two guys sitting in the midfield and covering the defence and playing it sensible. Do you know, so like that's what I mean. It should be bread and butter.
Terence, like as
But
well.
it should be bread and butter, Paul, for these guys to be able to do that. Rodgers is around a long time, like.
I agree, yeah, but I think now, though, like with modern football, a lot of managers just don't want to do that anymore, Mark. They just want to test their own style in Europe, and that's it. You know, they just the way it is. Like, you rarely see a manager really go all defensive nowadays, do you? Unless you're up in fucking Scotland, like Livingston and England, but you really don't in the big leagues, do you? You know?
No, but I agree with terms. Just the old
Mm.
saying, Paul, I don't know if you've got to an island, you can only piss with the cock you've got.
Yeah.
Do you know, and that's terms to saying I totally agree with that. But on the other hand as well, terms, he got Leicester to a European semi.
Exactly.
You know what I mean,
Yeah, but I guarantee.
Has he learned his lesson? That's what I'm trying to say. I've not even watched a Leicester game for Rodgers went to him. Do you get what I mean? I don't watch English teams or that, but has he learned his lesson? He must have been doing something right to get Leicester that far in a European competition.
Is it any coincidence that the first player Celtic are linked with is the fella was after he's gone from Leicester, he's going for Leicester, he's on a free, and he's a holding midfielder.
And he was a flavour under Rodgers.
Yeah, but is there any coincidence that is, because that's the one position where Celtic played AC Milan, they had a holding midfielder. They played Leipzig, they had a holding midfielder. They had Shakhtar Donetsk, they had a holding midfielder. Celtic assumed they didn't need one.
Yeah,
and got torn to shreds.
That's what myself and Marcus said there, Terence, when we were actually talking about, and we said that could be the only fault under Ange was that one position. Position, you know.
It was a massive fault, Paul. You said you might get away with it. You'll get away with it more times than not in Scotland. Like they were, you know, if you look at some of the goals that Celtic conceded.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many times was it that they were caught out in possession? Or, you know, there was one. I was certainly over in Leipzig. There was once or twice McGregor lost the ball, and I love McGregor. I don't think he's a holding midfielder. I think he's a fabulous footballer. He's a brilliant footballer. But I'm just trying to point out something. Like, there's times when he lost it in that position where he's a holding midfielder, or when he's out of position. The Shakhtar Donetsk goal is another example. He was caught rotten in that one as well.
Yeah, he was.
You know, I said I'm not trying to pinpoint. It's nothing to do with McGregor as a player. It's McGregor in a position he shouldn't be playing in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Especially at that level.
Aye.
It's all kind of guessing now, Mark. Like Rodgers could do. Like he could come in and assess the squad. He could actually turn around and say, Mark, Kyogo doesn't suit my team. We don't know what Rodgers is going to say, but I wouldn't think so. I think there's kind of a lot of similarities, I think, between Kyogo and Vardy, the way they kind of play, you know. But do you think that any positions that you think Rodgers would kind of change straight away when he comes in?
Well, I think goalkeeper could be one of them, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I think goalkeeper, and a day either he'll be in, I think I said it the other night to you, Paul, I don't know what you think, Terence. I think Osmer suited to a Brendan Rodgers team.
Big thing, yeah. I do, yeah.
I'd just be going with what we've seen with him, do you know what I mean?
Down to the byline and crossing the ball in, Mark, with the wing.
A big physical kind of guy. I mean, you look at the ball, don't know, do you know? I think O could become like one of the players that kind of gets what Rodgers is trying to do, and Rodgers will really improve him. I really do. And I think he's a more suited player to Rodgers' system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know he's come out and says he wants more time for the Champions League and that, but I don't know if Kyogo will still be here next season.
Yeah, it's a strange, right? Like, ain't they? Like, it's all kind of. It's like a waiting game, Mark. Ain't they? We're waiting to see what happens, or we're waiting to see who's going to come in, who's going to leave. Like, we just don't know. Like, do we? You know.
Aye, the William Smith said about Haksabanovic. We've spoke about that as well, Paul, haven't we? Getting Haksabanovic in a kind of central role, maybe.
But I want him. I think him under Rodgers, Mark. We could have another Tom Rodgers with him in a Rodgers lineup. You know.
Well, I remember a game they played, and it could be St. Mirren or something like that they played. But I remember Haksabanovic played in the middle,
Yeah, he did. Yeah, yeah.
and he actually had a
James,
cracker of a
James,
game.
he came on, and then James Forrest came on after him, and it was James Forrest actually went into Yotta's position, and Haksabanovic Terence jumped into the centre.
Yeah. And I
That was
thought he was very
that.
good in the middle. Like I thought again, you can't, it's only 20 minutes. Like even a blind squirrel finds a nut. You know what I mean? But like you need to see him there more consistently. Like you know what I mean? But he looked good. But listen, I know this is going to sound funny. I know you wouldn't like it anyway, Paul. But people are even suggesting that David Turnbull might have a big
I
future
saw that, aye.
under Rodgers because of the type
And
of
he
player he
could,
is and the
Terence,
type of player.
because if you look right, I criticise Turnbull because he couldn't keep up with Ange's fast play, and he wasn't consistent enough in that. But Turnbull in a more possession-based football could actually suit him better. Do you get me? A different manager could actually suit Turnbull more. Do you mean because we're going to hold on to the ball a bit more, our spaces are going to be tighter, and there's going to be less running in a Rodgers team. So maybe it could, but I don't know. I think Turnbull himself, and just reading between the lines from here, I still think Turnbull will go just for himself to be playing first team football. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
think
I could see that too. Like I could see that too because I the other side of it as well, Paul, is you have to remember like you're right in what you're saying, but Rodgers is going to have to come in. He's going to come in and obviously he knows the expectations there. It's like I think you both said it there recently, and I think even Michael had said it a couple of weeks ago when he was on it. When have you ever seen a Celtic manager come into such a good situation?
Yeah, exactly.
So in the Champions League, right, won the treble, squad, all in good contracts, and all seriously talented players. Normally you get a if Rodgers just came in or the time Martin O'Neill came in or guys like that, they're coming in and there's generally been a mess the season before. Like this is completely new. So like I'm sure Rodgers has been looking at the football and seen it. Like he knows the expectation is that it's still going to be the Celtic fans are going to want him to be playing at a high tempo. If they go back to this really, really slow possession and passing over and back, like he's going to be going in a short leash with a lot of people as it is. And if it starts and it's fairly dour to watch, I think he'll be under pressure not from the board, but from some certain sections of the fans. If it starts off being a poor, slow, passing over back kind of mentality, like I would assume he's not going to change it. He shouldn't change it massively, but certainly the tempo shouldn't change at all. To be honest with you,
Yeah,
when it's at the high level,
especially Terence, when the team was so young and we know they can do it. Do you mean the tempo should stay the same? This fast tempo mark,
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, something, Brendan. But I mean, Rodgers' first season. Do you know, that's what we want to get to a kind of mixture between like Rodgers' first season and what Ange was playing.
Exactly,
the first season was good under Rodgers.
Then he started getting players like fucking, is it Trojan, is it, and stuff like that, is it?
But I don't know how much of that was him now, Paul.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like it just started falling apart when, like, we were bringing in players, Terence, that weren't kind of suited to the way Rodgers wanted to play either that time. You know what I mean? And like,
well, obviously, the people that are there now have obviously take the Japanese boys out of the equation. But someone's obviously identified Carter Vickers. Someone's identified the likes of Alistair Johnson. Someone's identified Matt O'Reilly. Someone's identified Jota. Like there's no way that the Spurs manager identified all those players. He's identified the lads.
We actually talked about that the other day, Terence, myself and Mark. I mean, like, Lord has a big saying in
I'd say that's Matt Lowe. I'd say that's Matt Lowe and his team that's found their players. Even didn't Jota, even O.
Yeah.
Even O, because see when Ange was there in Japan,
Mark,
aye, but when Ange was there in Japan, O was only like 19 or something like that, and he was still doing his national service and stuff. So it's not as if Ange saw him as a youth player, and a lot of people seem to be giving Ange the credit for that. But that's
we actually don't know, Mark, what kind of content. Mark Lowell has been with the Man City group. Do you know what I mean? They've scouts all over the world.
Aye,
You know what I
aye,
mean?
and he was in charge. Aye, and he was in charge of them all, Paul. That's what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. You know, do you know, I was just thinking there. He ran about a keeper. I'm just fucking going.
I think Seagrass.
No,
Hmm.
was it Brendan Rodgers that signed Dane?
It could have been. It could have been because
Didn't he?
yeah,
It was, wasn't it?
Well,
because he played.
So I've just sat there and spoke about how Rodgers made signings that weren't actually his, and now you're saying it was him that signed them.
He signed him for was it? We didn't injure.
Aye, but was it him or was it Peter Love that signed them?
And we did injury to DeVries, weren't this? We did injury to 2 keepers, weren't it? And he came in as an emergency signing, weren't this?
Aye, because he signed for Hibs, wasn't it? And hadn't played
yeah,
against
and then he actually turned up the Celtic in his tracks at that time. You know? Jesus Christ, I'm just shitting myself that he's not going to be our keeper next season after those blunders he made against Hibs. Everyone was saying, geez, Scott Bain's having a great game, and then the 2 goals going, nah, fuck that, because Scott Bain has gone, no, can't have him in goal next season, you know.
No.
But listen, Paul. Rodgers has had, before he's signed on the dotted line, he's told him exactly what it was he's requiring before he signs. And you can be guaranteed that Dermot Desmond says, you're going to have this. And he's at a meeting with probably Desmond and Michael Nichols and, as I said, the finance guy. I doubt very much Peter Lawwell was there. He may have been there. He might not have been there. He could have. There's likely to be Mark Lawwell there. He's probably going to sit down with all these guys and said, well, if you want me to come, Dermot, this is what I want. A, B, C, D. Because
the shows with Lennon saying, wait, no, Neil, this will all blow up now in a couple of hours. Just stay there, I'll get you the job.
You know, but I mean, as I said back in the time, like Scott Bain, if he has come in, it's clearly like a stopgap. You know, what is there? And then they're probably looking at it in the home rule and thing and all that kind of stuff as well.
I think now we're so financially secure now. You know, when our next, I think AGM comes out, Mark, I think we're going to hit $1 billion or something. They said, is this?
I seen somebody saying that, Paul. Aye.
Yeah, we could be hitting $1 billion. Like, the club now is so profitable that we're able to give the and we guarantee Champions League money. And with this season, Mark, we're able to back the manager. But it's do you know a couple of weeks back, I think you were on, Terence, and Mark, you were on, and we was like I was saying to you, like are the big name signings gone? And the way Rodgers is talking, I think we could be in for a big name signing this summer. I said, you know, a marquee signing, Terence.
Paul, I think we'll break our transfer record this summer.
Mm-hmm.
They have to, Mark. They have to, not they should. They have to, like.
I
mean, they said they've only spent 9 million on a player.
Oh, that I think, Mark,
unless it's a pure cute deal, like a bargain, Paul. But I wouldn't be surprised to see us break my transfer record this summer.
But when you consider, Mark,
what Rodgers' market is. Rodgers' market is like Premier League in the top level. So I mean, we say him and
that's
Mark.
Mark, if he wants to take Celtic to the next level, these are the players that we actually need, isn't this? You know.
But you have to remember, like, it's 12
stuff like that. You have to do that. That's the bread and butter of Celtic. Then to sell them on, like, but like we're on about Ajax there. For previous, Celtic should be looking at Ajax as the role model. But now, if you look at Ajax, Mark, right, they're buying these young players. Like, if they don't come through their academy, they're buying players for 20 million, right, and they're selling them for 60 to 80 to 90 million. Do you know what I mean? So even they kind of changed their way. They went from always kind of promoting through the youth. Do you get me? You know, so they're actually buying these young players.
They're still producing their own players as well. That's the thing. You produce your own players and then spend your transfer budget on a bit of class.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, a bit of class, Mark, and then you get it. Like, look what we got for Edward, and he was in his last year of his contract. You know, we got more than enough back from Edward. You know?
I know, but you have to understand as well, Paul, right? Like Celtic are living in regards to transfers to 10 12 and 15 years ago. Like, what was 5 million 5 or 6 or 7 years ago is not 5 million today.
Exactly.
Like, you have to remember, Celtic have never, in one-off payment, have never paid more than 9 million for a player. That's absolutely unbelievable for a club like Celtic. And the highest transfer player in Scotland ever was 12 million. 12 million. You probably get fellas in the championship that are costing you 12 million now.
Yeah, sure. What did you say there, Mark? The fella Wood.
You know, you man, Chris Wood, he said about Chris Wood going there, like, yeah. The fella who's playing with Newcastle, like, yeah.
1 goal in fucking 4 goals in the season, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
£50 million.
But you have to remember as well, so Paul, like, again, look at the Celtic side. If you go through the Celtic team, you could go solid here, solid here, solid there, solid there. So for me, I said it, I think I might have put something up in the forum about it. I'd rather Celtic buy maybe 3 or 4 players that were like 7, 8 million or more a player and have a serious impact on the team rather than trying to buy 10 players that are 3 million each.
What I like too, Terence, and it was something I discussed with you in the podcast. I actually asked Tuvi. The question was, I think with Rodgers coming in as well, we'll see more kind of European-based players come into the team, you know, because I think Rodgers kind of likes those kind of European-based players, Mark, you know. Does that actually stop our marketing in the likes of Japan now, do you think? Or
I think it will be, Paul. Unless it's maybe somebody, like a young player that's exceptional kind of thing. I don't think there's going to be.
Like I still say, Mark, we'll still have a contact over there. Do you know what I mean? I still like not a contact, like a spotter. Do you know what I mean? That would see a talent, like they'll contact Celtic or they contact Mark Law or something like that. But I just don't think it's a market now where Celtic will go to with Brendan Rodgers knowing the players he likes. Do you know what I mean? He likes a physical player. Like, I mean, if there's a player like that over there, and I think Owasa could be a good player under Brendan Rodgers. You know, really do.
I think he'll struggle to get into Brendan Rodgers' team, Paul.
Well, if you look at the first signing, the young players, the Norwegian fellas after signing, he's a holding midfielder. That's his position. And they're talking about the Leicester fella coming in as well, who's on a free. He's a holding midfielder. So they're obviously Rodgers is obviously. I imagine there's a slight discussion there beforehand.
I think he already. I don't know, Terence. Like I know he's not in the thing. Like, but there's discussions like that. Like, do you think that was already identified by Rodgers, Mark, or is it too early to say that, or did the club know themselves that was an area that we needed to strengthen? You know, because Andrew's always adamant that we didn't need someone in there, you know. Anyone?
I'd be very surprised, Paul. They'd have to go to that position. They'd have to look at getting that position, someone in there proper, because it's Europe where they want to stake a claim, and that's the one part we've all said that they've been dismantled them when it came to playing in Europe. Like.
Owasa might be not even signed. He was on a loan to buy.
Is it not an obligation to buy?
It's an obligation, I think.
I think it was just a matter of timing.
What did some fella said? Because when the internationals are on over in Japan, kind of everything else stops.
I can mind you something about it.
Yeah, so I say that. I think Owasa will be signed. You know what I mean?
Well, he will be signed, but I don't know if he's going to be, if he's a Brendan Rodgers type of player. And
the only way he won't be imagine is if he doesn't settle. If he doesn't settle, that's the only way it won't go. I imagine the same as Maeda was. Maeda was a low with the thing to buy. Like,
I mean, that might change. Owasa might want to be here. No, Mark, that Ange is in demand. We don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's, you know.
See where the squad is, the new terms, where the new, right, without anybody leaving or that. Right, going to be, well, we're kind of guessing Rodgers has got to go for a 4-2-3-1. What would be your starting 11?
Obviously, to me, the back four would still say this. The keeping the back four would still say the same. Been realistic about it. In midfield, I wouldn't have I'd have McGregor in there, but I wouldn't have him as a holding midfielder. He's always before. Yeah, it's 4-2-3-1. So if it was me, judging on what I saw, and I know he won't play it, I'd be playing Matt O'Reilly in there.
Yeah,
We'd probably go that with,
that in there.
yeah, with the likes of what we have there. I'd be playing Iwata and O'Reilly in there, or Iwata or O'Reilly and Hatate in there, something like that. McGregor maybe further forward in the three. 4-2. Sorry, no, sorry, I get it right. O'Reilly and Iwata in the middle, then McGregor further forward, Hatate further forward. You'd obviously probably have Kyogo up front, but Rodgers might have but you'd have Kyogo up front, and then I don't know who you'd have. Maybe Jota in one wing, and depends who's there, who's still there. You know what I mean? And the other, I don't know. I don't know, but it's a hard call. But I wouldn't have in the whole of midfielders. I'd have O'Reilly and Iwata. I'd have that would be the 2-4-2-3. The three for me would be Hatate, McGregor. You could have McGregor on the kind of left side because he's normally a bit of a left footer, or whatever way to put it, on the right, or Hatate. And if you're going to play Jota at 3 and then Kyogo up front, that would probably be the one I'd be looking at to start with. But they mightn't be very balanced side, to be honest with you. But they're the players I'd start with, like.
Well, see, I'd be quite happy with McGregor in that midfield too, as long as he had
with someone, Mark.
something.
Yeah.
Aye.
I like what you're saying there with Cal McGregor and O'Reilly.
McGregor and O'Reilly or Iwata. I mean, Iwata, he's reading of the game. We saw that. We caught glimpses of that. He's actual reading of the game, and that's fantastic. But is he physical enough for that? We've not really seen that for him. And I think Rodgers, I mean, it used to be like Scott Brown and McGregor. So Bruni brought that kind of physical side to that part of the team. And I think Rodgers likes that kind of physical presence in there. Somebody mentioned Beaton earlier on. I know what you're saying. I do think so. Maybe Iwata could take on the Beaton role and come on just to slow the game down and tidy things up at the end. Do you know what I mean? But I'd go for McGregor and O'Reilly maybe in there as the two.
Well, Rodgers is always, I know it's slightly different a couple of years ago in time and waits for no man and all that. But if you ever watch when McGregor was always very much further forward under Rodgers, I know because they played in Cham and Brown were normally in midfield, or Armstrong and Brown were always kind of sitting there. But he always played McGregor further forward, maybe sometimes in the 10 role or sometimes out in the left side of a 3 or whatever the way they put it. You know, he was always a lot further forward. Now, obviously, you know, he's been playing in the kind of holding midfielder role for the last number of seasons, so maybe that's where he's more comfortable there now. Like, but you don't know. But I know what you're talking about, Mark. I can understand that as well. I was just thinking I was thinking where Callum McGregor would be most effective, I suppose.
I think he's lost that now, too.
Probably has.
I mean, his goal scoring record's atrocious, really, when you think about it, for considering what he used to be like when he was younger. And I don't know if it was when Rodgers came in and started playing the 4-2-3-1. I think that took a lot of his game away. And I think McGregor,
he is today, isn't this? Like Rodgers kind of moulded Cal Mack kind of player.
Aye.
Today, didn't he?
But for me, Paul, he has been a bit what we talk about in the forum, like he done with players at Liverpool. He's been a bit Brendan. I mean, Cal McGregor, as he's one of the best Celtic players, Paul, I've seen in my life.
Yeah, without doubt.
He could, for me as well, he could play at any level. He could go and play at any level in the pub league.
Not right back, Spain, back door.
No,
Jesus Christ.
But when he was younger, he was more like an attacking midfielder, more a box-to-box midfielder. But for Rodgers got a hold of him, he kind of knocked that out of him, and he's not been as effective going forward. So I think he is more suited to be like that deep-line playmaker role, but no the physical side of that.
He needs someone there, Matt, to do that dirty work.
Aye.
What you said before, let Scott Brown there, but not let him dictate the way Celtic play. That should be Callum Mack's job, isn't it? You know, so let someone there with Callum Mack, but let Callum Mack do the work.
Let him control the tempo of the game and stuff like that, and just have a bit of muscling beside him to give the midfield a bit of protection.
You know, like
evening, John. Thanks very much for coming in, mate. Nice to see you.
There's one lad there who I think could actually have a role on the blended Rodgers is Rocco Vata. Nice pacey winger that kind of likes getting the ball, crossing it, and by the looks of him, he's actually one of the best crossers in the team at the moment, Mark.
I'm not holding out much hope for any youth players, Paul, under Rodgers, to be honest.
He'll have to be a serious standout, Paul. A serious standout.
That's the only downfall about Rodgers is youth level. Do you know what I mean? Because we've said it numerous of times here, Mark, there was no kind of interest really. Rodgers wanted to buy kind of ready-made players and then he'll bring them to that next level that they were. Do you know what I mean? That's true.
But again, Paul, that comes down to poor planning for the club.
Yeah. But
Because
no, we have systems in place, though. Will that change?
And see when it comes to like every transfer window when the squad's getting assessed, then it should come to, again, Paul, with a director of football, we say no. You integrate this young player into the squad. We're not buying anybody.
That kind of the role, really, Mark, as well. I know, like Hummel is coming in. Like, is he going to bridge that gap between the pathway for youngsters, or is that nothing to do with him whatsoever?
Who?
The Mark,
Stevie Hamill, isn't it?
Steve Hamill, yeah. Is he going to be helping players integrate into the first team?
He's a head of coaches or something like that.
Yeah.
Aye, something like that. Then Paul, aye.
He could.
Maybe we're just kind of looking at we don't need a director of football. We've got people here that can, if we split the jobs up, we can do it between us.
Like,
There's got to be somebody that says to Brendan Rodgers, wait, the new Brendan, we spend millions every year on our youth academy, blah blah blah.
But if you look down in Denmark, like he did bring in you, but I think he bought Harvey Barnes, didn't he, to Leicester, didn't he? Bought him, but there was young players that he actually did integrate into that Leicester system, So
I think
if the players are there, Mark, maybe he will. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, did we have the players back then? I don't know if we did we?
So we'll never know because you never give them a chance.
But we didn't have any kind of lowland league either there, Mark.
But when you don't have a reserve league, Paul, they have no chance to shine. I know I keep repeating this a lot of times when I'm on the podcast. We've all spoken about Ajax. I guarantee if you looked at Dutch football, I'm sure there's a B league, if you want to call it that for a better term. And those guys are playing football against, if for argument's sake, Celtic are playing Hibs this week away. The B team are playing Hibs away that same weekend. And like as I said, a young guy's going to learn an awful lot more playing against professional football players at the same level and better than them when you've got guys coming back from injury and they're playing games, whether it's for Hibs or Celtic or Rangers, and you're a young guy from Celtic and you're up against a regular guy who's playing with Hibs or a regular guy who's playing with Motherwell or a regular guy who's playing with Rangers, then you are, with the greatest respect, playing against a butcher, a baker and a candlestick maker, because that's what they're playing against at the fucking lowland league level.
Gucci came out there a couple of weeks back. He gave an interview over in Japan terms, and he actually criticised Scotland for that. He said he was fit, and he was always fit, but he could never get match fit because there was actually no games he could play in. There was no reserve league games that he could come in and get match practice. He said there was no point in him coming on 5 minutes at the end of a game or anything like that. He was never going to get fit. And like, he's right, like, isn't he?
He's 100% right, Paul. But I keep going back to the point. You can't develop any young lad. You cannot develop any young lad. They've got no pathway. You cannot go from the lowland league into the first team unless you're a ridiculous talent. And you wouldn't be playing in the lowland league level if you were a ridiculous talent like that.
That thing there, Mark, you put up in Discord there about Rangers putting out of it this season.
Yeah.
You could aim, could you? Out of the lowland league, like when they were postponed, they have was it kind of a third-tier league for those kind of teams?
They want a conference league or something like that launched in.
Yeah.
I don't know what everybody's arguing it. I don't mean we're arguing this. I mean Scottish football's arguing this. And why did they stop it? Why did they stop the reserve league? There's
no reason.
No. Was it money financially? Mark, was it costing clubs too much?
Well, we're paying for much as our women's team, much as our women's.
I'm just going to say that.
My point, Mark.
I was going to
say that. You know?
I was going to say this exact same thing, Mark. They have a women's league. I'm not being sexist. They have a women's league. They're all professional. They play every single week. They can run a league. You can't tell me that they can't have a reserve league or a B league or whatever you want to call it league that was there and has proven through the years that you get players through it. You cannot expect any player in any form of sport to go from not playing any competitive games to going, right, you have a chance coming into the first team. The likelihood of them having a good game, especially if you're a young lad, is so slim. And if they have a horror show for Celtic in one game, everyone is going, get him out of the side. Get him out of the side.
I hope I get my slang here now, right, Mark? Right, I think it's what you call any man, right, that goes to watch women's football is a fucking nonce. That am I right? A pedo.
No, fuck off! You can't say that.
Of course he can, boys. He's not getting nothing at home. Why would you want to go watch Ginger Minge? Christ's sake, in fairness, by give me a break. You know.
Well, I'm just talking about general football, though, Paul. But like if Celtic, Rangers, Hibs, all the teams, all the respective teams that have a ladies' football team, you can't tell me that they can't facilitate a B team because the players are, in majority of cases, in all the clubs, are already there. It's just simply getting a structure in place to go, right, we're going to have a B league. Motherwell are at home to Rangers in the main league this year or this weekend. That's the same as the B league. Celtic are away to Livingston. That's the same if Livingston have a B team, for argument's sake, or they're away to Motherwell and Motherwell have a B team. Like it's not rocket science how to run it. Like if you're having a lowland league and you're having the ladies league and you have such a gulf between the next tier, it doesn't make any sense. The reserve league is a no-brainer. The reserve league should be a priority to the women's league and the lowland league. With the greatest respect to both those divisions, I've not been anyway sexist towards the women or anything like that. But the reserve league is the key. The reserve league is the key for me to get players through Celtic.
Where does it stop up in Scotland? Is there? I know there's not the 18s, and there are the 16s, 18s. Is that where it stopped? Then there's nothing after that. Only the lowland leagues. Then is it or what?
No, there are lower ones than that as well, Paul. The East of Scotland League and West of Scotland League and stuff like that, I think, too.
And what age groups playing that then?
Oh, I think that's just like the other regional versions of this Highland League.
Uh-huh.
But it's guys who are normally working guys, though, Mark. That's the problem. They're normal working lads playing in it. Like
I'm on about Mark within Celtic Football Club. Like, is this in Celtic Football Club we have our youths like 16s, 13s, and under 18s. But do Celtic Football Club have another 21s or anything like that?
No.
You know what I mean?
That's the B team.
Yeah, that's the B team.
The thing about it is, right.
Like the reserve league over in England on the 21s.
But the SFA and the SPFL should be running this.
Mm-hmm.
They should be saying, look, if you're playing in our league system, but say in the top two divisions, you need to put a reserve team in as well. That should be just the SPFL should be running the reserve league or the SFA or whatever you want to get to run it, but it should be the people running the game that are looking after the younger players.
Do you know what that could actually do as well with a reserve league? Eventually, we could have better quality referees being promoted to the Premier League.
Nah, that's not going to happen, Paul. That's a closed shop.
Just because of the running of the referees.
Aye. I've said that before. There's got to be guys that are capable of refereeing Premier League games for Aberdeen, for Dundee, for Perth and places like that. But they don't get a chance. Right? It's like the Lanarkshire Mafia, they call it.
Jesus Christ, it's unreal. Well, you see it nowhere else, like, wouldn't you? You know? Before Mickey Johnson had his bad injury, he was class and we all loved him. I never did. Terence never did. He got injured and struggled. Give him another season with the rest of the squad. He will back to his best. Thoughts on that, lads? Thoughts on Mickey Johnson? I was even freaked when he declared himself for Ireland. The mind saying declare himself for fucking Celtic.
I said, Paul, when he was here at Celtic, it just seemed to try too hard for me.
Too hard.
So maybe
is he good enough? But you see,
give him 6 months or a year to see what he does.
Celtic to be. Do you know what I mean? He's like probably best amount of time. He could be decent against the new.
Well, could they do a job for us in Scotland? Could they do a job for us in Scotland?
The type of player that you want.
Could they do a job for Scotland for us, like before a Champions League game?
Probably.
You know what I mean? While we're resting Jota, so we'll play Mikey Johnson against fucking St Mirren.
I say something, Mark.
I
probably would be happy to have Mickey Johnson as a backup than having a 34-year-old James Forrest.
Mickey Johnson, in my opinion, Paul, is his own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Like for me, like he's a certain stature, a certain size. He's not going to change that, but he needs to work on his strengths. If I was you, if you're a manager to him and the ball comes to him, sometimes you need to say, right, Mikey, just whip it in. Just whip it.
He's actually got more physique because when I've seen him play around, he actually looks bigger.
I know, but what I'm saying is, rather than going to him, Mikey, I need you. Like, you need to try and stop beating 4 guys. Sometimes when the ball comes to you, just put in. As I said this before in the podcast, if I was someone and I was in the coaching with him, I'd put him aside and go, watch what Aidan McGeady used to do for Celtic. I think they're similar sizes and skill-wise. McGeady could frustrate the life of you at times, but he was obviously a better player than say, Mikey Johnson. But I'd be going, you don't always have to be the man. You don't always have to beat the man. If the ball comes to you and you're a good crosser of the ball, put it in the danger area. You have a Kyogo, you have good strikers there. Put it in the danger area. You don't always have to beat men. And like, he doesn't have the physicality in Scotland a lot of times to out-muscle guys. Then just be sensible in what you do. Play 1-2s with fellas and get yourself into space. He has speed, but don't always think that you have to beat 3 and 4 men every single time. You can always get the ball in first time. That's what I'd be saying, because the problem that I found with Mikey Johnson was he had to beat a fella. He could not just get the ball in first time. He always seemed to have to try to at least beat one guy. And more times than not, he was out-muscled and he wound up on the ground. Like that's only, again, my opinion on it. Like,
Turnbull was a far better option than but Ange had favourites, like playing Mead on the left instead of Jota on the left and Abad on the right. Ange was too rigid and stubborn. Yeah, I agree with that, but next we'll probably say bring back Christie. He's the great left foot under Rodgers. Fucking hell, like Turnbull was a great player. That's like saying if my mum had wheels, she'd be a bike. My God, if you want to progress like Turnbull and Janssen and those players, do you know what I mean?
But you can't have superstars in every position sitting on the bench, Paul. You've got to have players. You go to any big club in Europe, Paul, they've got players sitting on the bench that aren't good enough to start with.
But what we did see under Ange, Mark, when I know there was a lot of things that went wrong kind of in the second half of the season, but what we did see when these Finch players played, a lot of them weren't good enough.
But it's not for me, Paul. It wasn't they weren't good enough. They weren't getting enough game time.
Game time, yeah, big time. There's a reserve league thing again without going over it, but
that's what
manager.
We used to sit in the live chat, Paul, and we all could predict Andy's substitutions before they happened.
Every time the same substitutions.
That's the thing.
This is why I actually think Maeda doesn't suit Ange's system. Running with the ball and trying to overtake a player and cross it. His crossing, let's be honest, isn't the best. It has improved, but is it the best? No, not really.
Paul, when Maeda first came in, I've never seen him, what he brings to the team apart from running about like he's
not from what we saw of him, Mark, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
To be honest, I think if you looked at Maeda was nearly on the wing, more as a defensive cover. Yeah. Especially when they played Rangers, it was obviously a lot of times to counteract, have an ear.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Okay, but Paul, go back to your point a minute ago. All managers, no matter what manager it is, whether it's Martin O'Neill, Neil Lennon, Gordon Strachan, whoever it is, all managers have their particular players that in a sense, you want to deem it their favourites. If in a sense that it just basically suits the way that they play. Whether Rodgers would have had that, if Ferguson would have had it when he was managing United, and every manager will have 2 or 3 guys that he can basically hang his coat on and go, I can pick this guy because I know he's going to do the job for me. It mightn't suit the next manager, but it suits him at the time, and that's why Maeda suited the Spurs managers what he wanted to do. Certain players. So, like for argument's sake, I think I heard Mark. I think I was saying it the other night. He said it. Like, if you hadn't seen it, would Rodgers prefer a Jack Kamakis or would he prefer a Kyogo? If he hadn't seen either of them playing,
Marcus, yeah.
More than likely Giacomakis because he liked the Dembele style, strong, able to hold the ball. Do you know what I mean? So it's horses for courses, but managers are always going to have 2 or 3 guys that they'll go, I can rely on this guy. He can rely on the Spurs manager could rely on Aaron Moy to come on and do a job for him. He can rely on Moy to do a job for him.
What's the story with Aaron Moy, Mark? Because nothing has officially come out that he's retired or.
No, I've not heard anything either, Paul, officially, sir.
Nothing has come out about so.
Aaron Moy was another one, Paul.
Was he out of contract, Mark, because he still have another year or what?
I think he got another year, but I think it's optional.
Optional, is it? Yeah, so that's down to Rodgers as well, you know what I mean?
But it's, Paul, Moy was another one that came in, played a couple of decent games and everybody was raving about him, but let's face it, he was basically shite. I never, even when we were watching games, Aaron Moy's making it. I just thought he was very...
He's workmanlike, Mark.
Aye, but that was all it was. That was all it was, Terry. We could have signed somebody from Scotland that would have done the same job as Aaron Moy.
I'd play Riley over Moy any day of the week, Mark. Even when Riley was having a bad day, he was still creating assists. Riley, people just judged O'Reilly because he wasn't scoring a lot of goals, but they didn't look at the overall thing what O'Reilly was doing. He had the most assists again this season.
Mike came on and done a job, but did they do it often enough? How many games did we sit and on the live chance passing was shocking?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You would imagine it would be a better option now than that. Aaron Moy. If you go to his current squad,
you'd even like to think Big Boss and Lil would be a better option than him.
Oh, you would 100%.
I never liked Moy, so I wasn't impressed when we signed him, and he did a couple of good games, but I still never kind of got the way that some Celtic fans went on and on as if he was like one of the best. Oh, what a kind of it was like what a masterstroke for Ange signing Aaron Moy. I was like, maybe no.
Listen, the other side of it, Mark, is it's nearly like being a striker for Celtic. A half-decent striker for Celtic should bang in 20-plus goals every season. A half-decent midfielder for Celtic, they go into games in Scotland and they probably have 75% possession or more, should stand out. There should be, you shouldn't be a midfielder for Celtic, especially in the middle, they shouldn't be coming off the field going, God, your man had an absolute mare. More times than not, they have 75-80% possession. They should be standing out in the pitch.
Do you think, Terence, maybe Rodgers might be looking to bring in another striker and have the 3? How many strikers did Rodgers have at his time at Celtic? I know he had Edward and Dembele at that kind of time as well, didn't he? Was it the 2?
Griffiths was there as well, wasn't he? Griffiths was there.
He had the 3, didn't he?
Griffiths was originally injured when he got injured when he came in, and then Dembele came on and he scored a hat-trick that time in the Derby match.
Well,
Griffiths was starting out of that,
but on about managers making big calls, that was a big call back then by Rodgers. That season when Rodgers came in, was it Griffiths scored 40 goals, Mark Billy, on the Ronnie Dyke?
Aye.
Rodgers went away then, boy. He goes, no, you didn't suit me, boy. You don't suit my style of play. I like my big centre forwards. Mark, he went away and he bought Dembele. Kyogo there,
In fairness, Paul, the Dembele one, he brought him in, yeah, but Griffiths was actually injured for that Derby game. It wasn't that he didn't pick him, he was injured, and Dembele came in and obviously took his chance, and you can't really drop a guy after a hat-trick. And he went from strength to strength. To be fair, after that, he terrorised Rangers anytime he played against them.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Terence, Griffiths really wasn't the kind of striker that Rodgers wanted either. Do you know what I mean? It was always kind of
Quite possible, yeah. Quite very possible, yeah. He might want the big muscular guy up front, like you said.
mark with Kyogo that Rodgers
Aye,
decided
aye.
I don't want Kyogo. And
Jabber, Moy was our best midfielder for a few games after the World Cup. For a few
when
games,
he
Jabber.
got his match playing week in and week out,
Aye.
Mark, exactly. You know.
In which the Celtic should be sending players just so they have a good few games for us. We want a good game for them every week. We want every player in our
But
Celtic
that was
team
always
to
my
be fighting to be the
criticism.
best player.
That was my criticism of Turnbull, Mark. I never questioned what Turnbull could do. It was the consistency. Turnbull could be good for 1 or 2 games, and then Turnbull will go back to being Turnbull. The next game, then non-existent in the game. You know what I mean? You know.
Aye.
That was always my criticism of Turnbull. And I know exactly what Turnbull can do. Like he's a fair. Like that might be something that Terence that would change under Rodgers that you always questioned under Ange is taking shots outside the box. Rodgers always liked a player from outside the box that could shoot. You know.
Yeah. Again, but to be honest, Paul, these are professional footballers. That a lot of them are international footballers. You know, they should be able to figure that out themselves. If the ball comes and there's a chance to shoot, you don't necessarily always have to go. Oh well, there's a chance here to have a pop a goal. There's only the keeper in front of me. But I have to pass it because the manager said I have to pass it. So there's onus on players to take a slight bit of responsibility from that side of it. I get your point, but like it's not a case of, for argument's sake, under Christie, just as soon as you get the ball, let fly. There's a time and a place for all of it, but the players, in my opinion, you'll train a certain way. But I mean, if an opportunity arises, the ball breaks you and you're at the edge of the box, it's players. It's up to the player's decision to take a pop at it. But players should be. There's plenty of them on the team that can strike a ball. Hatate, McGregor, Turnbull, if he's playing. You know, Jota, they can all put their laces through it. They're all Hexavanovic. They've all got a good strike of the ball. So. Yeah, look, I think that's an individual thing when it comes to the time, Paul, when a chance falls to them. You know,
it shouldn't be your main tactic. Mind with Chris Commons under Lennon.
Yeah, and Christie as well. Like,
you just seem to be getting
Mark into jazz.
Aye. I mean, there's a time there.
In front of his shoes. Do you know what I mean?
Even in Doctor Strangelove, nice to see you.
I'd rather have someone get game time than Turnbull. I think a lot of people in the same boat, Mark, with Turnbull, aren't we? You know, I think.
Turnbull was a great player when he was at Motherwell. I don't know whether it was his injury or whatever, but he's not became a player that, not even just us as fans expect him. I think he's not became a player that a lot of people like seriously involved in football thought he was going to become.
One thing we saw, and I hate go back to Ange because he left, but look, we got 2 good seasons out of him, and his ability to improve players, but we just didn't see that with Turnbull under Ange.
No.
You know?
But even doing that as well, but Paul, it was like, was it down to even the system?
But that's what I said.
We didn't really, I mean, Turnbull is more a kind of...
Could he not keep up with the pace?
No, I don't think it was that, Paul. I think it was actually the way Ange played.
Did he fit into that team?
Aye. Where did Turnbull fit into that team?
Formation.
He was there like a CDM. He wasn't your box-to-box midfielder or anything like that. I just don't think Ange...
You see Turnbull, you know?
Well, the problem is, Paul, as you said there, Mark is saying it there and making a very valid point, but if you look at the 2 midfielders, Paul, McGregor and Hatate pretty much were nailed on starters. Could you see Turnbull replace neither 2 of them? The answer is no.
We signed him, right? When Neil Lennon, we signed him that time in Neil Lennon, right? When I go back to Neil Lennon because it was Neil Lennon side. Where did Neil Lennon see him in a Celtic team when we signed him? What position?
Neil Lennon didn't sign him, Paul. We can't sit here night on podcasts and talk about so and so. That was Peter Lowe.
I thought when Lennon signed him down line tried to get him twice, was it not? That time.
But that not be Peter Lowe, Paul. That's what I mean.
It was Lennon's time, all right. That's it.
Did he?
Yeah, see every player.
That can we saw mark of players.
Every player Celtic
shouldn't have signed.
every player Celtic signed, Paul, right? If it's a success, it gets blamed and the manager takes the credit. If it's a disaster, Peter Lowell takes the blame for it. That's basically what it's been for the last 10 years at Celtic. Do you get what I mean? And it's no, I mean, you can't say that Brendan Rodgers signed Turnbull or Neil Lennon signed Turnbull or they signed this player, that player. Because at the time, Paul, Celtic manager didn't have much control of who they were signing. We've even seen that under Rodgers the last time.
Where did we see him so, Mark? Like when the club signed him, where did they see Turnbull? Replace Scott Brown, McGregor, or, you know, because that's where he kind of played with Motherwell. What it was
I'd say it was probably being one of the two. I'd probably say it being like in McGregor's position, Paul, because it was Scott Brown done the kind of holding midfielder. At the time, McGregor was doing a kind of box-to-box job. So that's probably where they seen Turnbull.
Yeah.
Probably there, or maybe a number 10 even, Mark, at the time, because he was quite young. Either the McGregor one or the position just ahead of him, but it would have been one of those two when he was so young. Because he used to score quite a number of goals for Motherwell, because he was quite offensive in that side of it. So maybe Celtic saw him in that position, and like a Scott Brown and like a Callum McGregor, over time that he'll slowly come backwards, so to speak. And you know, when the legs get a little bit slower, that you can come back, and you know, maybe progress into more of a holding position for him. I don't know. That's what I'm assuming. Anyway.
We could actually end up keeping Turnbull for the quarter as well, Mark. Do you know what I mean?
We could end up seeing James McCarthy in the team next to McGregor.
I don't know. I say he's finished by, I say, is he? Injury-wise, I'm not just talking of his playing career, but I just think, just injury-wise, he just seems to be getting constantly. He's at that stage of his career now. I think he's just getting injured.
He played too many games, Paul, but again, even when he was fit, Ange just didn't fancy him.
Like, this is a whole...
And then,
for players,
it was Ange that talked him into signing for Celtic.
Yeah.
People say, that was a Dermot Desmond signing that. It probably was, again, back to the Irish connection. Dermot Desmond built the bridges. But Ange signed off in that deal. It was Ange that spoke to James McCarthy and asked him to sign for Celtic.
Well, it was
McCarthy wasn't sure. McCarthy was
at that time, Mark, wasn't it?
What?
You know, it was Ange as well that picked up the phone to Joe Hart that time.
Aye.
You know, Joe Hart said that himself, like that when he spoke to Ange on the phone. He was on.
But it was McCarthy was swithering because he wasn't sure about who the manager was going to be and stuff. And then it was one of these things, Paul, that Ange got announced and he phoned McCarthy, and it was Ange that gave the thumbs up to the deal. And then he never really gave him a chance.
Like,
and
this
then
is
he got injured and it struggled with
in
that.
a way, like, it's for a lot of players, Mark, and even players coming in alone. Do you know what I mean? The likes of Shaw, Yorhidi. We don't know, Mark. It could be a new lease of life for them. Rodgers might favour them. We're on about big physical players. Yorhidi's a big physical. He could get us. I'm not saying he will. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, it's a new lease of life in.
He'll get freed, Paul. He'll be freed in the next couple of weeks.
You know. And what about Shaw? Liam Shaw?
Nah, he'd be the same.
You know.
I don't think he's up to that level either. But Paul, if they've signed a Norwegian defensive midfielder, that's apparently this young lad who's 2021.
I'm just hoping, right, that Nixon might do, Mark, what he did with Barkas and just write these off. You know what I mean? Just write them off, get rid of them. They're taking up a wage. It's actually work out cheaper if you got rid of them now and keep the wage. I know they're not going to be on much, but if you add up the likes of 2-3 players, it actually means a lot to Celtic, you know.
But you still need to pay them off.
Yeah, I know that, yeah, but I don't
So if they're sitting there with a year in their contract and they're due £1 million on their contract, you're going to have to negotiate with them and say, right, we'll give you $500,000 to get away.
What they signed under the McKay deal, they could have at least in their contract that they could go for cheap. You know, Jesus Christ, I just hope that's the end of that. But that scenario, you know, Mark, with those contracts, is this, you know, or does the bad fall into that? I don't know, you know.
I hope it's ended Japanese stuff so you shut the fuck up about it, I know.
But do you know what? I actually just
What do you think,
there. In I read something. There's a fella on Twitter. He's called Yasso. All right, I followed. He just does all these.
Aye.
And he actually put it up, Mark, that he doesn't know if there's something in the Japanese contracts that if a bigger club comes into him, Celtic have to sell.
But what's a bigger club, Paul? Rangers
Exactly.
could come in. But do you know what I mean? Rangers could come in and try and sign
Or
Kyogo.
Premier League club, Mark, or something like that. I don't know.
Aye.
You know,
It might be. Do you
You
know,
know,
what the way contracts are and that? But
I'd be very dubious about that one, though.
aye. But see if you don't want to be here,
Oh, well, listen, if you don't want to be here, I have no problem with them going.
Money. Whether it's
No more than
Kyogo, Hatati,
Giakoumakis,
any of them.
JJ, any of them. I have no problem. Even the manager, if they wanted to be there, like he did, he buggered off, whatever. But players-wise, I'd agree with you. Any player that doesn't want to be there, leave. Like, for argument's sake, Juranovic, very good player. I personally think Johnson's a better player. That's my personal opinion. I think he offers way more. He's as tough as nails. And he like Johnson.
Alistair Johnson, yeah.
Yeah, he looks tough as nails. In fairness, always come in and personally for me, massively unfair criticism. Like because he misses the chance against Rangers where he hits the post, he's absolutely hammered, insulated. People have short memories. People should look at some of the misses that Kyogo's had.
Mm-hmm.
There some of the misses that Kyogo's had in his time, and I love Kyogo. Some of the misses he's had have been absolutely horrific. Like it's like missing your mouth with a fork. But people get into their heads. It's like the Starfield scenario. The badge.
Starfield.
Yeah, it's like the Starfield scenario. He gets thrown into a game at the start, and all of a sudden he's tarnished with that. Always the same. I'm hearing people going, "Oh, he's not up to it at all." The guy had. I saw that stat. I think I said it to you. Say something like a goal every 80 minutes or something. He's only played 580 minutes for Celtic and he scored something like 7 or 8 goals. Like
the header.
So, I mean, the header was phenomenal. The header was unbelievable. Give the guy a chance. Like give the guy a chance.
The technique, like he was facing away from the ball, and his technique to turn his head to get that to the far post, like that header was unbelievable for a young lad to do that. Do you know what I mean? And our problem is with Celtic, Mark. When O comes on as a sub, we still played as if Kyogo was still there. We never played to O's strength which was crossing the ball for the headers he scored against Hearts. You know? Do you remember the time Klinsmann came over to watch him? Do you remember that? Klinsmann came over to watch him and O came on for the second half. And it was one of the worst games I saw Celtic play, and I felt lousy for O that we never created chances for him like we did against Hearts for the header in that game. You know? I really did.
Well, to the same extent, you can't turn into right, we've got to change the way we feel just because Jurgen Klinsmann's here watching some players.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I saw a lot of times, and it wasn't just for O, Mark. It was, I said the same as well for when Giakoumakis was playing. We played the same way as if Kyogo was up front, even if it was Giakoumakis up front. You get me? We played to the striker's strengths. Do you know what I mean? We didn't create enough chances or cross the ball or had someone to cross the ball. Do you know what I mean? Yossa's crossed on the left as well.
But I've said as well, Paul, would Kyogo be able to play in that number 10 role?
Could, Mark, yeah.
Kyogo in the number 10 role. Aye, big goal up front.
Yeah, like there's a big possibilities here. What we could see, like 4-3-3 or 3-2-2-3. Do you know what I mean? You never know. I could see Rodgers go cheat the back door. Could you?
No,
really couldn't.
No, sack that. Honestly, 3 at the back's brutal.
That's gone out. It really hasn't.
So it should have. I mean, because as soon as your fullback pushes up the pitch, that's you're exposed in that position.
No, we could go back to zonal marking as well under Rodgers, I say, for corners. You know
why?
Because he actually likes the zonal marking. Rodgers, he was the one kind of brought that into the Celtic first day, zonal marking for corners, and he kept it the same as at Leicester, and Leicester's had the worst record in the Premier League the last 2 seasons at set pieces.
Okay, that should kind of answer the question then, shouldn't it, for Rodgers?
I'm just putting I'm
Oh,
putting
I'm just saying, I've never in my life seen Space score a goal. Seen loads of men hit their balls. Never seen Space score a goal.
Yeah, I bet you have.
You know, and that's the truth. You've never seen Space score a goal. You've seen plenty of individual headers or players played or scoring goals. I never understand the logic of marking a space, marking an area, mark the man. It's
I saw a few
bread and
times.
butter, like.
I saw a few times a few girls getting pregnant and their husbands are shooting blanks. That's a story for a different podcast.
That's not even a story for any podcast.
Oh, man.
No, I'm been involved in anyway.
This is a true story, right? True story, right?
Dude, Paul, we don't know this.
Yeah, listen, if there's people's names involved in this, Paul, I'd be very careful saying it on the podcast.
No names. Mark, I told you this, like, girl was panning around, she was going out with this fella since she was 16, and they got married and they had their first child. I think she was about 20. And he's white and she's white, and the baby came out black. And I swear to God, it was like me, myself, and Irene. There's the doctor taking the baby out. There's your child. Do you know what I mean? Oh man, and then two of them going down the green, pushing the buggy, like, and you're going, jeez, how's it going? You look in to see the baby, you don't know what to say. Oh, he's got your eyes. I swear to God, man, it was hilarious.
I heard of a Protestant in court getting pushed about in a buggy.
There
was a Protestant in court getting pushed about in a buggy, and that was even more an uproar. A wee Rangers baby.
Do you know what, though? He fucking stuck with her, boy. Stuck with her. Still together, boy, yeah. And they have one Chinese kid now, and an Asian, and an Egyptian.
That's got. Oh, I have to say that. I'm saying that.
Still together, no defender.
Where'd you go with that, like?
I don't even know, man.
I went on to the live chat. I went on to the live chat. I told you, lads, you don't know what's going to come out of my head, man. You know what I mean? So just came into my head there when you said nothing scores in space, and I thought shooting blanks. That's a different conversation altogether. No defender would like to mark Kyogo. Yeah, sure. What did
punch him in the shoulder? Just give him a nudge, punch him in the shoulder. He'll get down and went off. That'll be him. First 5 minutes, crack him in the shoulder. Kyle will go down and want subbed. How many times that happen?
A lot.
I'm lost. Hold on. What you're talking about.
I know what you mean. Basically, what Mark is saying, Paul, is there's been games where Kyogo's got a very light touch into the shoulder, and next minute you see him holding it, and he comes up and he's running, and the next minute, 2 minutes later, he's down and he's off. It was happening before the cup final as well. There was talks that he mightn't have been available for the cup final. He didn't train all week, and he didn't go to the player. He got the Player of the Year award, and he wasn't at it because they said he wasn't fit to attend it and all this. So I understand what you mean, Mark. He went down very softly, basically.
And he can still jump about doing the wee daft dancing that as well.
I know that made no sense, like, but however, that made no sense. Would you think Rodgers would look at playing Kyogo in the up front?
So what? Sometimes actually down below he started Iheanacho and Vardy up front. He did the two.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Mark, would you think he would Rodgers would ever look at starting and Kyogo up front, the two of them together?
Like, sure, be God, Mark.
I don't know if he would start. I don't know if he would start a team like that. I don't know if he would start with, but maybe for getting beat, do you know what I mean? He'd maybe throw it in.
Yeah.
Like, is there certain games though, Mark, up in Scotland, the likes of teams that sit back and stuff like that, like you have Ross Counties and stuff like that. Sure, because Celtic should be playing 2 strikers against these teams. You know,
But it
or
depends.
is the 2 strikers like we're saying, 3 defenders out the back? Is the 2 striker role actually kind of non-existent now in football, or what? Like you don't really kind of see it anymore, do you? You know,
No, not really. It's either it's either like a lone striker or it's like the front three, isn't it?
Like football has changed, like hasn't it? Like it really has. Like we never kind of see kind of 2 up front now, like or 3 at the back. Like it's either 3 or
streakers. You never see streakers that fit by either now. I miss streakers. Aye. And the Fox, I used to streakers. Women used to run on the park with their babies and that out, Paul.
I saw Ginger Minge running around the field.
Don't you start with this, man. Is it with you and Gingers?
I don't know about it.
It's a perversion for you, Paul. That's honest to God, man. This is
imagine
this is up here with your Toby stuff and that.
Do you imagine this, right?
Your serial killer ginger stuff. My wee niece is a ginger.
Paul Dunbram, is it Jeffrey Dunbram? Paul Dunbram going out killing all the gingers. Imagine the striker, right? Running on the pitch in this heat. She'd be fucking burned alive by the time she gets caught.
Anybody that's from Ireland, clip that and put that out. Paul's want to kill gingers.
Half the population.
Aye. Big Pat the Milkman. Was it Pat the Milkman out of Father Ted?
Yeah.
Aye, he was a ginger. He'll come in and sort you out, Paul.
I'd say there's a fella 3 or 4 doors away from me, Mark will sort him out, because I'm sure there's a fella, red-haired guy, only down the road. They're bound to be, because I know lads that only live down the road from me here, they're red-haired lads.
Just a fella down the wrong from one, and he's a child, and he's a ginger, and he's fucking snots coming down his fucking face. That's what he does. I have a good one to stop the car one day and tell him, wipe his nose, you ginger cunt. You know?
Well, first of all, the child is probably about 2 or 3 years of age.
Gosh, he's fucking 10, and he's still a snots coming out his nose. You know?
Oh, yes. I give up. I give up.
I was tempted to myself, would I beat the horn out, or would I just knock him down? You know?
Why do you not just go and wipe the wind's nose then?
You rolled over my ball. Fucking stupid cunt. So I just kept the car going. I rolled over his ball. I punched it.
What'd you do that for?
You shouldn't have kicked out in front of my car. And I fucking punched it.
We shouldn't be fucking driving in the road when we start playing football. What if he's a future Celtic captain? You fucking bust his ball with your motor, you dick.
He will, yeah.
Aye.
You're
not getting tickets then. Some wee ginger guys, next Celtic captain, aye, playing football on court. This arsehole tried to sell my mum Slim Fast. He tried to give my mum Slim Fast, and then he ran out of the ball with my motor and called my wee ginger C.
But you'll probably be all right, Paul, because he's probably going to say that this lady drove over my ball with her long hair, so you're probably covered in that side of it, you know what I mean?
Long flowing locks. In fact, Paul, what if he turns out to be a fucking heavy gangster in 10 years' time, comes up to your door and knocks your cunt in for their talk? Hey, wipe your nose, you wee manky, aye, hold your jaw, you dick.
I'd be very dead by then, man. That's like, by. You know? I'd be dead in 10 years' time.
He fucking runs over you.
Huh?
Hey, wee boy in 10 years' time buys a motor, ends up a heavy drug dealer and runs down you.
He will.
Fuck you dick, means you sent me to wipe my nose.
Yeah, and I'm still, and you still didn't wipe at your bollocks.
Aye, and then just lifts his hair and gets a big indicator roadster and rubs it right in your fucking face.
You know?
And for anyone that's listening, anyone that's logged in late, lads, this is a Celtic podcast. It's just slightly gone off the point.
We're talking about a young Tommy Barnes. If you hear Ginger, we're talking about Tommy Barnes' life story there. If you just tuned in, you know, did the fella Ben Summers play Tommy Barnes? Didn't he in his documentary? Didn't he?
Aye, it was aye.
You know, like there's like, I don't know, like. Do you worry about the young players now, Mark, that Rodgers is there? You know?
Oh, I don't think so, Paul, because I think there's the system's been a bit upgraded. Like we were talking about, like Mark Lowell and that.
Like, I just want
If
a
going
question,
to be
right?
stuff like that.
A question to both of you, right? We're saying it's a different football club to when Brendan Rodgers was first at Celtic. In what, like I'm asking, in what terms have Celtic improved in the last 4 years since Brendan Rodgers left?
Well, took your power away from Peter Lowell.
Mm-hmm. Structure.
That's a big thing. The structure.
People know their roles, Paul. People know what their positions are, and people know what jobs they're meant to do. People know that Michael Nichols is the main man. He runs the football. He runs the club. Mark Lowell's involved with the transfer side of things. Chris Ladd is involved with the finances. They run a certain part of it. The manager's job is to manage the football team, get the football team winning, get the football team on the pitch, and get them getting results. That's where there's been a clear and obvious for me to see, since obviously Michael Nichols has come in. When the Spurs manager was there was a distinction. Like, he looks after the football, he looks after everything else, and that was very, very clear and obvious to see. You had individuals looking after, you had McManus and Darren O'Dea looking after the Lowland League team, the B side, whatever it was. So you people, the roles are very, 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 very specific for me, and everyone seems to know what they're meant to do, and that's massive. Whereas before, under Peter Lowell, it appeared that basically he had a call on everything from the outside looking in. That's what it appeared to be, even down to where the allegedly where the smoking shelter was to go, like stuff like that. I don't know how accurate or inaccurate that is, but the difference is now is like everyone has their own defined role and they do it, and it's been done very, very well in the last number of years.
That's the way it should be. I mean, I've said it, right? There's certain things I think Peter Lowell's an absolute clown for, but there's other things I think he's been one of the best things that's ever happened to Celtic for.
Mm-hmm.
And if he'd just stuck to doing what he'd done best, Celtic we'd even been in a stronger position than we actually are. That's the way I look on it. For me, alone, it can be
like here we are.
Leave people doing to do their own job. If you know about this side of stuff, you do that. If you know about other side of stuff, you deal with that. And that's what it was. And it was just, I don't know whether it was too many cooks spoil the broth or whether it was just the big chief playing the big chief. But there was something wrong with Celtic for a good 10 year, I'd say, terms. Would you agree with that?
I would. It appeared again, Mark, from the outside looking in, that one individual had basically the main say over nearly every area. I might be exaggerating, but it felt to me that basically nothing was done, regardless of whatever it was, whether it was infrastructure, whether it was the running of the club, whether it was buying players, whatever it was, everything seemed to be basically Peter Lowell's call. And no, there didn't seem to be even a case that it was 2 or 3 people involved in it. It was basically he's making the call, and for argument's sake, he'll pick the manager. He's looking at these players. You know, I mean, there's obviously professional people there that are professional scouts. That's their job. Mm-hmm. And yes, they go, look, we've got these 4 or 5 guys that we think, you know, would be of interest to us. We should look at them. But he seemed to have. It wasn't the manager seemed to have the final say. It seemed to be Peter Lowell seemed to have the final say in an awful lot of areas. And unfortunately, it was areas in certain aspects that he wasn't deemed qualified to have the final say, in my opinion.
Mark, I think the biggest appointment we've done since Brendan Rodgers left was Mark Lowell.
I'd agree with that, Paul.
I think that's just for.
See if his name wasn't Mark. See if his name wasn't Mark
Lewis.
Lowell, Paul. See if his name wasn't Mark Lowell. And to be honest, Paul, see if he wasn't a Celtic supporter. Celtic would never have got a sniff of getting a guy that calibre.
Because we used our contact. Yeah.
Aye, I mean, people going about nepotism and blah blah. Oh, it's who they know. But see if you're used you. I mean, this might be, I don't know.
I
Maybe
think,
I'm
Mark,
snidey, but see if you're using nepotism and who you know to improve your business and what you're doing, I don't think there's anything wrong with
Well,
that.
Mark,
It's when you're just training for jobs for the boys, it goes
think,
right.
Mark, right? I honestly think, right, if Peter Law was never at the club, we would have never got someone like Mark Law at the club. You know?
I think I disagree with you, but for me personally, I think it's Michael Nichols is the best appointment that they've made. Putting him in there as basically the CEO, because we don't know. Michael Nichols could have been the guy that was involved in appointing Mark Lawwell. He could have been involved in identifying Mark Lawwell as obviously known him through his father and through the City Group and stuff like that. But like what he's done behind the scenes is exactly what we've called out for years. He's the polar opposite to the past past CEO of the company. Like,
but then right, you look at the signings that Ange did. They were for nothing. Peter Law would have loved that, Mark, wouldn't he? You know, these.
But he didn't, Paul. He didn't. He did the ones in Japan. The other ones were identified by the Celtic people. They weren't identified by Postecoglou. The Japanese boys were identified by Postecoglou.
Do you know what I mean? That's why I think Mark Law was one of the best appointments. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, he is. But what I'm trying to say is he's a brilliant appointment, unbelievable appointment. But I'm saying who's to say that Michael Nichols wasn't the guy who got him in? I don't know. But for me, I think Michael Nichols has been an absolutely outstanding appointment. You know, the way he's running the club, the way he's the polar opposite. As I said, he's the polar opposite to Peter Lawwell. Yeah, you always saw Peter Lawwell in the limelight. You hardly won't see Michael Nichols when there's a trophy being presented. You don't even hear him.
That's the way it should be, Terence. You know, we don't need to hear.
No, I mean it would be good to hear. It would be good to hear from maybe once or twice a season, but
at the AGMs, Mark.
At the AGM, or I don't know.
But maybe it's not that kind of character, Mark. Maybe he's not that character.
But you don't think Terence is a CEO of a company and a football club the size of Celtic? Maybe gives a couple of interviews a year.
Listen, I can understand that.
But I agree, he's doing a fantastic job. You can't fault that. And I'd rather. I mean, even now we're sitting there and we're talking about Peter Lawwell, right? And we've explained it on the forum and everything how this non-executive chairman role is nothing. He's literally legally not allowed to get involved in decision making.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Fair dues, he'll have a bit of a say. He'll speak to Dermot Desmond and say stuff and speak to his son and say stuff.
Advisory role, Mark. Advisor, give his opinion.
But he's not allowed to sit in board meetings and try and
his opinion is taken. If it's not, it's not. That's it.
He's not allowed to try and sway opinion or push his own kind of agenda or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. I guarantee as well, boys. Make no mistake about it. I'm sure Rodgers has come because of. We've all heard what the Spurs manager has said about Michael Nichols.
Yeah.
Rodgers has obviously known him before that because his initial role. Before he took over CEO, he's in the legal side and he was involved in contract negotiations and that kind of side of things.
Coach Roland.
They're playing.
Was that Chris guy you were talking about earlier?
Chris McKay.
No, is that his name? No.
Yeah, McKay. No. Yeah.
CEO.
No, he's a financial.
Oh no, it's Chris McFarley or something like that. Something like that. But Michael Nichols was the legal side of the contracts, so he was involved in contracts and negotiations. But I'm saying is when you listen to the interviews from the current Spurs boss, he was always very praising Michael Nichols. There was never an issue. There was never a sport. I have no doubt that Rodgers obviously knows him from his time, and he's probably had discussions with him. And he probably feels very, very comfortable going in having a discussion with this guy because he's already set out a template as to how he performs.
Well, there was rumours going around, Terence, that last week, Mark, you talked about there was kind of rumours going along with the delay that Rodgers wanted assurance that Peter Law will have no involvement in anything that on the football side of it. I know these are just rumours, like, but that's just what you're saying there, that he'd be dealing with Nicholson and that's it, you know.
But that's people putting 2 and 2 together and getting 10.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem.
There's no reason for
Like, how
even
do you think?
Rodgers to ask that, because it's like, wait a minute, Peter Law's my problem. He was the CEO at the time. Who's the CEO now?
You
Michael
know what the
Nicholson.
CEO is
Oh,
like.
right, aye, but right, well, fine. Well, me and Peter going all right.
Yeah.
And basically, we know that. We do know that. They've been holidaying together and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's not bullshit.
Would you think?
Good night,
Like,
Bobby. Thanks very much for having you today, bud. Promoting
Mark,
us and doing your modding and that. Brilliant, Bobby. Good night,
Mark,
mate. Hail, hail.
what you're saying there about Peter Law, like that he was the CEO and all this kind of stuff. Do you think? I don't know. Like, would he have a chip in his shoulder? No, like that he has no stay in the club, or he's just happy in this semi
A chip
retirement
in his
mode.
shoulder, then fine.
You
If
know?
he's got Peter Law's got a chip in his shoulder, fine. There's nothing he can do about it, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
He's got no control over who the Celtic manager is. He's got no control over he's really not got any control over the direction the club's
Yeah,
taking.
that's what I'm saying. Like, you know,
He's got an opinion, Paul. Just like
I
everybody else on the board, he'll put his opinion across. But when it push comes to shove, Dermot Desmond decides what's going on at Celtic.
And I
That's
think,
basic.
Mark, we saw that with this Rodgers appointment, didn't they? You know?
Yeah, but
Oh,
as well too, Paul, if Peter Lawwell has a chip in his shoulder, which I doubt very much he does, firstly, he wasn't made retire, to my knowledge, after they lost the 10 in a row. He decided to retire.
Mm-hmm.
He was then asked to come back in this executive role as chairman when Ian Banky obviously stepped down. Like, if he was that annoyed, he, first of all, I'm only reading it from the outside in. I wouldn't come back if I wouldn't come back if I.
I think, Mark, I think when he was made as chairman, Mark, he thought he could have an influence and stuff
No,
like that.
Paul, not a
have
chance.
a-
He's around Celtic Football Club for too long. He's been in numerous different roles. He knows the way it works. He knows the role that Ian Banky used to do when he was CEO. That's the role he's going to be doing. He's not going to be doing. Michael Nichols is a CEO. Michael Nichols has the power to go, sorry, Peter, I'm in charge there. He's not going to be. People have this imprint that he's going to be involved in a lot of discussions. He's not. Even so much so a couple of weeks ago, where they showed a photograph. Where they showed a photograph of Hampden, and it was Dermot Desmond and Peter Lawwell, and everyone went, "Oh, look at Lawwell is with Dermot Desmond." If you pull back that caption, the other side of Dermot Desmond is Michael Nichols. Do you know? And the other board members. But someone has decided to take a picture just of Peter Lawwell sitting beside Dermot Desmond, as if to say, "Oh, Dermot Desmond or Peter Lawwell is now the main man back again with Dermot Desmond." He's not. It's Michael Nichols is the main man, and the sooner people realise that, the better.
Do you know why?
But even doing the fact as well, but Lowell never left the club because he needed to be I don't know what his title was when he left the CEO position, but he was still
But the
involved
European
in the
stuff.
club. Aye.
Yeah.
What's the difference then if he was still involved then? And as I said as well, somebody put it up on the forum, I think it was, and I said, right, see why to blame Peter Law for everything that's went bad to Celtic in the last 10 years.
A lot of good though.
Aye.
Did a lot of good.
There's been more good than bad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I want to slag him off for stuff, and I have done it. I've done it. I've slagged him off for stuff that I still don't agree that he done.
If he just stayed out of football side,
Aye, on the
a lot of
CEO
legs,
side,
he would be
making
brilliant,
his money. He's one of the best. He's one of the hardest negotiators known in the game of football. I mean, he is a guy that we slagged off that Daniel Levy at Spurs with Ange and stuff, but Peter Law is one of the hardest negotiators at football, and he's notorious for it. And the transfer fees we've got for players and that back that up. The deals we've got for players. Do you know what I mean, sir? I mean, as Lowell's there and he's involved, but people just seem, if anything goes wrong at Celtic, it must be Lowell's fault. Oh, that's all right. I's left because of Peter Lowell. And now Brendan's coming in, but he's asked for reassurances that Peter Lowell won't be doing this and won't be doing that. And it's a lot of garbage. It's
Completely.
absolute garbage.
Forget
about it. Can anybody name the chairman of, say, Arsenal?
No.
Can you name the chairman of Chelsea, Man United, Barcelona? You can't. It just seems to be Celtic fans that Peter Law, chairman, that's it. We're fucked now. It's absolute rubbish.
Mm-hmm. Just something there you were talking about, Terence. You were talking about the cup final there with the three lads with their gloom faces on. That was because Ange's special guest to the final was his agent.
Oh, I know that, yeah.
Dermot Desmond didn't want his agent in the director's box at the time, and Ange insisted. There was even rumours then, Mark, going around there, and I believe it, that Desmond actually didn't want Ange
Leading up to the side.
at the dugout for that cup final. He was so pissed off with Ange that he didn't want him parading out the team and cup final there. He wanted Kennedy to do it, you know.
Well, maybe he's took that a bit personal. Because
Well,
I mean,
he's giving him everything.
It was all
aye.
after he wasn't kind of negotiating with Spurs, and he was telling the media, he was telling the players, and
Of course he was.
agent then was popping up to fucking Celtic and stuff like that. Of course, you know what I mean? But
I get back to pull that picture of Dermot, Ange and baby Dermot. I think that was the kind of face-to-face, because the contract, according to the rumours, the long-term contract was on the table to Ange, and he stalled on it and dithered and dallied and
it wasn't just there in Denmark they put out that contract.
No, and I think for that photo came out, I think that was the kind of what's going on here. Face-to-face, are you signing this, or what's your intentions here?
Yeah.
I think
Was that before or after the Rangers game?
It was before it.
Was it before
To my knowledge, it was before it, Paul.
Rangers game then, Terence, then an episode. Celtic were actually taking up their options back then, so I say.
Well, I would hope. Sorry, Mark, go on.
No, sorry, Terence. Good night, Dr. Strangelove. Thanks very much for coming in, bud. Nice to see you, mate. Hail.
Sorry, what I was saying, Paul, is I would expect Celtic to have taken up the options. I would have expected Celtic to have the wheels in motion for managers at this stage, because, like, the Spurs manager that left us was going on holidays on a Sunday, but he was paraded on a Monday. you know, and like, I mean, just using examples like that, when Rodgers left Celtic on the Monday night or the Tuesday night, whatever it was, he was in Leicester the following day. Bournemouth is at Bournemouth today. They've sacked their manager, but there's a manager in place now already. So like, there's no, like, I would have fully expected Celtic back in that stage to obviously realise that there was an issue and have irons in the fire, so to speak.
Aye. I'd agree with that, Terence.
Rather than this prolonged, dragged out. Even so much so, as I would have said, with the whole, I know there was rumours that it wasn't signed and sealed and delivered because they were worried about John Kennedy wanting to go and all this. If John Kennedy wanted to go, then good, fair enough. Yes, if Rodgers wants to keep him around, but if John Kennedy wants to go, all the best. Do you know what I mean? Take care. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, kind of thing.
You know what, though? But it must say a lot, though, Mark, of Kennedy's coaching ability. If managers want to take him and if managers want him to stay, you know, it really does.
Oh, I'd agree with that. We said there later on, Kennedy is maybe just going to be one of these guys that's a good coach. Doesn't fancy the manager's job because maybe it's because of the pressure, because he sees why his career ended. Maybe he still kind of likes that camaraderie, being one of the boys, which a coach has got and a manager really doesn't have. We've got to keep that kind of distance in the kind of modern game.
And maybe Mark, at this stage of his career, he doesn't want that. Like, maybe later down the line when he gets that little bit older. We have to think too, Kennedy, not that old, like Mark, is he? Kennedy be in his 30s, I say, would he?
No, he's not. He's in his 40s, Paul, surely.
You know, like
he's in his 40s, Paul. But Paul, what I would say in the Kennedy side of things, when I saw the potential that he was going to go to Spurs, I was
39.
Is he? Okay. Well, I was very disappointed as well, Mark, because I was in my head going, like, he got a really bad injury young playing with Scotland. And he finished his career. But what I would have been turning around to him kind of going is like, and people mightn't agree with me, but Celtic looked after him from the minute he had the injury.
From day one.
He was employed with Celtic. He was employed with Celtic from the word go once he got injured. Like, he was probably only about 2021 maybe he wasn't very old when he got injured anyway. I remember that.
Yeah, we stuck by him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
that would be my point. A bit of loyalty back to the club of going. Will we look? We in a sense, I don't mean to hold a gun to a fella's head, but like, remember which side your bread's buttered on. Like, I mean, we looked after you from the word go. If Celtic turned their back on him back then and said, "Well, look, sorry, you're."
He played again after that.
Did he? I thought he finished. I thought he was able to play. Was he not able to play after that?
Aye, played after that tackle. Aye.
Did he? Well,
there's a kind of myth about that. It's a bit like the Roy Keane stuff. See, like Roy Keane gets blamed to ending that Haaland's career and that. That absolute garbage. Roy Keane, right? He did snap the guy, but it was on a different knee to the guy, and it was the other knee that ended up making Haaland Senior quit the game. But Kennedy played after that. But it was never quite the same. And then I'm sure he got another injury not long after it, and it was that kind of killed that off.
But I suppose what I was trying to say, Mark, is that Celtic stuck by him.
Aye, definitely.
You know what I mean? They basically goes, well, look, don't worry, you will have a position here. They basically, in all senses, has said, like, you'll have a job here for life, is nearly what it seems is like.
I think, Mark, it was more of what you were saying there, or on the podcast, that Kennedy was actually looking to see who the manager was and see what his position was going to be. Because I think if he was going to be, we say if Brendan Rodgers wasn't the manager and a different manager came in, but he wanted to bring his own assistant, and then Kennedy would have went down the ladder. I don't think Kennedy would have went for that,
Aye, I mean Rodgers could.
I wouldn't blame him there, actually, would you?
I want so-and-so X guy to be my assistant. Well, if Kennedy wants a job, it'll be managing the B team or something like that.
His first interview now was Kennedy, where Rodgers talk was lovely person, but Calatolo's available, so I said everything.
But to be fair, Paul, and please correct me if you're wrong, like Kennedy was normally just mainly a coach in pretty much nearly all the other managers, bar the guy who went to Spurs. Yeah, like because Chris Davis would have been with Rodgers. I mean, under Lennon, I imagine obviously it was Thompson or Johan Mjällby or Gary Parker, one of them. Like I don't know if he was
the academy in Lennon's first, and he was with the kind of academy, wasn't he? He was down the academies in this. It was kind
it's
of
probably
post came in that he kind of stepped up to the coaching role.
Yeah. Well, that's what I would have. That's what I would have thought. I knew he wasn't long in it. But what I'm saying is, he hasn't been in an assistant role apart from.
Oh, so it was only
last year.
Started really with Lennon, but you could see straight away how would that you could see straight away that if a manager doesn't want that assistant, how it doesn't work, can't you, Mark? Between Lennon and Kennedy, how when Lennon wanted to bring in Parker and the club said no, you're getting Kennedy. I mean, that this Kennedy wasn't short onto Rodgers. What I'm trying to say, it was actually Rodgers wanted Kennedy, not the club saying you have to take Kennedy. It was up to Rodgers. Oh
yeah, that's massive. That's massive, like.
Yeah, because you saw. Christ, there was. I don't think there was actually no relationship between Kennedy and Lennon that time, do you?
Very, very little anyway, Paul. Very little, But he also wanted Tommy Johnson coming in, and he wasn't in as well. So, without going over all ground, that's a lot to do with who was supposed to be in charge at the time.
A football role as well, Mark, that time. Did he? Johnson? Did he? Lennon?
He did. He wanted him and Tommy Johnson, and that was a no-go as well. Like so. Maybe, Paul, it's a situation that Celtic want to keep. Mark has mentioned it a lot of times. Maybe Celtic want to keep kind of a template in place that if the manager does go, they have a backroom staff there. They have their, within reason, when it doesn't rob them all, that they have their sports lines, they have their data analysts, they have their coaches, they have everything. And a guy can just come in and you're the first team coach and he might want to bring an individual or so, or whatever. Like
that's the exact thing that happened the first time Rodgers left Terence. He took the whole backroom staff, bar Kennedy, and he wanted Kennedy. And Kennedy said no. Like, Mark, could you think that's the club as well? Here, to have what you're saying, Mark, structure in place that the manager does go, that the backroom staff is there to have some structure in place. You there, Mark? Well, Mark's on mute there, don't know what happened. Like, it could be right there, Darren's right. You know?
Oh, that's what I'm saying, because for argument's sake,
Click
if
the
you
right
mark,
button there, sorry, Paul.
You know, no, just go what Terence is saying there, Mark. This seems right, like what you're saying.
A bit of structure and a bit of continuity.
Yeah.
They wanted the structure, they wanted the coaches to stay, they wanted the structure to stay. You know?
I mean, maybe Rodgers will come in. I mean, people are talking about like Scott Brown coming in. Maybe we'll bring Scott Brown in and John Kennedy will be just like the number 2.5 or the number 3, whatever you want to call it. You just put these coaching teams in place.
Guardiola has 2 assistants. He had Messi,
Aye.
he had a heavy fella that's with him, and then he had a first team coach.
It's like it's just, but Paul, it's like a team.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's not as if like John Kennedy's sitting there saying to Gavin Stratton that, "Oh, shut up, you man! I'm the assistant manager, and you're only the
backroom staff."
It's just. I think it's just the modern game. It's just made it like a bit of a team. And I would like to think that Rodgers had gave the okay to the backroom staff.
I would think so as well. But if you look at the medal ceremony, look how many guys come out. Do you know what I mean? Between the backroom staff, it's
Rodgers getting paraded. Actually, Friday they said officially paraded by the club. I think it's a Friday and stuff like that. Is there?
Some of the players are due back Monday, meant to be.
Monday, so he gets probably Friday.
The players that are on the international duty are meant to be due back Monday, I think it is. Evening, DJ Alba, nice to see you again, mate. Hail, bud.
Are you expecting Terence, the 30,000 fans that turned up first time for Rodgers, or are you expecting a low-key parade by Celtic or what? Or?
Listen, Paul, I think there's a level of both Rodgers and Celtic will box clever with it. They know there's going to be a percentage of people there going that they're not happy about this. There's people that are willing to go, okay, look, if you look at Rodgers and take that incident out of it, is he a good coach? Is he a good manager? Is he good all that? Yes, he is, no question about it. But there's still going to be a lot of people that are annoyed at the way he left, i.e. me. But what I'm saying is Celtic will obviously be sensible. They'll probably just do like they did with the way Martin O'Neill was on the steps. Just do something probably there, like a quick word. I can't imagine it's going to be a big parade around the ground around Parkhead. So, they'll understand that there's going to be a little bit of animosity there.
Danny Graham be there in his team. You know, that'd be brilliant. I want this if they had him.
All Rodgers needs to do is come out. All Rodgers needs to do is come out the front steps of Celtic Park with a bag of cans for that guy. Mind that with the video?
Yeah.
A bag of cans and Brendan Rodgers back. Walk out with a bag of cans.
Yeah, but that's all he needs. Come out to the steps and say, look, I'm here to win trophies. I'll do everything I can to win them. That's it. I have no interest in listening to any of that, Paul.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no interest in listening to that.
Do you know what I mean? I don't think none of us. So just come out, say, I'm here. He'll get the backing off everyone, I said.
Take a leaf out of Michael Nichols' book. That's what he should do, and he'd be fine. All he wants to do is win in the football, win the pitch, win on the match, win matches for Celtic. That's all.
Aye.
Everything else, don't care about it. Don't care if he ever makes an interview. Couldn't give a monkeys. If Celtic win and win every week and win leagues and win cups, that's what he's paid to do. I don't care if his grandfather's mother's brother's sister's aunt was a diehard Celtic fan and his uncles are now back talking to him again, and Billy O'Neill from Belfast has phoned him and texted him saying he's great and it's great to have a lifelong Celtic fan, blah, blah, blah. Don't care. Don't want to hear any of it. Just want to hear. I'm just here to win trophies for Celtic and manage Celtic and do the best I can do for them. Thank you very much. Now bugger off and coach the team. That's it. No banging the chest, no kissing the badges, no running around saying it's the iconic club and I've always followed it my whole life and I'm bleed green and white and blah blah blah, whatever else they might come up with. Don't want to hear any of it. Yeah, just manage the team and win.
all his life, Terence. Maybe he did like, maybe he actually is a Celtic supporter. Yeah,
I'm sure he is a Celtic supporter, Paul. But I know that. I don't need to hear it. Win on the game.
Aye.
After you can't come out and say you're a big iconic Celtic fan. You bleed green and white. You love this and do what you've done. It's very hypocritical to come out and say one thing and do the other thing. Just come out and say, I'm here to win. I'm going to do my best and try to get the best team on the pitch and win as many cups and many trophies as we can win and do as best I can for Celtic and Celtic Football Club. That's all he needs to say. That's all he needs to say, and leave it. And leave the rest of it. And do the talking on the pitch. Don't have to do it on the rest of it.
We're football fans, I mean, we love when a manager here says that, like, you know what I mean? Like, freaking, we were sucker on the bench for saying that we were sucker for Rodgers saying it. You love hearing it, Mark, but do you know what? I agree with Terence there, man. I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm just want to hear it. I'm here to win trophies, man. And I'm here to do
That's
all you want to hear.
When it came out that Ange like officially left, I texted Welsh and said that to him. I said to you, this badge thumping stuff. No, I'm not buying into that again.
No,
that, do you know what I mean? And Welsh was like, wait, man. He says, I said the same. He says, but just wait. He says, you will buy into it, but
exactly, man.
As I've said all along with Brendan Rodgers, even to Terence, what have I said all along? Right, you can't fault with my manager. My head says yes, but my heart and my soul just. It's this. I can see your point of view, Terence. I honestly can. Do you know what I mean?
Give me a Gordon Strachan style manager.
Well, like, who's to say? Like, do you know what I mean?
Give me a Gordon Strachan style manager that doesn't come out with any of that nonsense.
Aye. It just does
none of that job. Nonsense. Just does his job. It does his job really well. Really, really well. He qualifies it. He qualified Celtic out of the group stages twice. Against seriously good sides, and if you ask, when he was asked questions, he gave answers. He didn't pretend to be something he wasn't.
Do you know what? Of all the managers, right, who gave us that bullshit, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. The only one who I really thought, like, for not being associated with the club now, right? I'm not on about Lennon being a player, because I knew Lennon loved the club and you can't say he didn't, right? The only one who had no connection to the club and who really meant what he said at the time was Ronnie Dyler. I really thought he really got Celtic, Mark. You know what I mean? He really wanted to bring Celtic to this next level, and we've said it for years and stuff like that. He was at Celtic at the wrong time.
I think if the club was set up the right way, Ronnie Dyler would have been a lot
today. If we got Ronnie Dyler today, Mark, as our manager, and he was getting the backing that we know that he would get now, I could imagine what style of play we'd be playing, Mark. You know what I mean?
But he go to New York, and now was he with Standard Liège, and now he's with. Is he Bruges or vice versa? It's something like that. He
went to Bruges,
He's not with small teams. Like, he's obviously proven that he can deliver it. Do you know what I mean?
Everywhere he goes, he's still talking up Celtic. Do you know what I mean? Like, when he went to Bruges, his first interview was, Bruges is the Celtic of Belgium. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, they're we talk about like directors of football and that. What about somebody like Ronnie?
Oh, he brought up, as I said, we go back to, he brought McGregor, Tierney, Oyer.
Yeah.
Like three young guys, like two of them sold for big money, like.
Mm. I mean, it was only about a
2
year
seasons.
Ago. But it was only a year ago we were sitting here talking about, get Ange, give him a couple of years of manager, whatever, and then offer him like a director of football, oversee the football stuff. And Ronnie could easily do that kind of job, I think.
Oh yeah, but no one expected the Spurs manager to do what the Spurs manager done.
I don't even think the Celtic board are that expecting me.
No, I don't think they did, Mark. But I really don't.
I really don't. I think, and I keep saying this. Celtic got lucky with Ange, but Ange got really lucky with Celtic.
Without doubt, Mark. Without doubt.
There's no other team in Europe. A couple of teams sniffed about him and stuff like that, but nobody ever took the plunge with him.
Mark, I put
I
this to
think
you,
that's
right?
what annoyed me. That's what that.
I
I
put
think
Yeah.
this
that's
to you,
what pisses
Mark,
me
right?
off. That's what pisses
I
me
put
off.
this to you, right?
Me too.
If Celtic had got Eddie Howe, right? Okay. And you would have went to AK Anne's, all right? Because
Aye.
practically a done deal, all right? And we say we still had Eddie Howe today, right? Okay. Do you think Tottenham would have been looking at Ange Postecoglou in AK
No,
Athens to be
no
their next
chance.
manager?
They wouldn't even have
Exactly.
heard him, Paul.
Exactly.
Really, apart from anybody that was deep, right, I don't know if it was on the podcast or speaking to one of you or Mikey or something like that, right? See when when Ange came on the scene and that, right? See when I seen like the pictures and read stories, right? I can vaguely remember him being the Australia manager, but for the simple reason, Paul, I've said this to you before, Paul. I think I kind of look about my dad. I've showed you
Yeah.
a picture.
Yeah.
Aye, he kind of looked a bit similar to my dad, and that was the thing about it. So I can mind him just being the Australian manager. I can't mind anything about how he played or anything like that. He did some good results and stuff like that. So he did have credentials, but nobody else in Europe took the plunge and
No,
took, oh, right,
no.
we'll give you this chance.
But
No.
Mark, he was 55 coming to Celtic.
Aye.
Do you know he'd been around the block? Like it's not as if it's not as if it's his first or second managerial job. Like
And involved with the City group as well, Terence. And they,
Oh, yeah.
you get what I mean?
Exactly, but this is my point, like- yeah, and I agree with you, Mark. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like he was good for Celtic, but Celtic were brilliant for him.
Yeah.
Aye.
And the loyalty he gave us, man.
He done better out of it than we did, really.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Like he's got the Spurs job on the basis of Celtic. Like
Aye. If he hadn't came to Celtic, he would never have got
he'd
a
be,
job in England.
as I said, Paul said he'd either be in Athens or he'd be back in Japan with one of the teams back there, I imagine. Something like that.
In the next 18 months or so, I totally
Yeah.
think that as well, Ter. As soon as this Spurs thing goes tits up, he'll be off back out to Australia, Japan, or Greece or whatever. And maybe is that what it was? Was this his kind of one chance at a big job?
I think so, Mark. Yeah.
He was in a big job, Mark.
No,
if you look at clubs now, Mark, like, they're really not looking at this age group managers, are they? You know, they want the next upcoming, and this is his last hurrah, I think, Mark, last big job.
No, I mean, he's gambled. He's gambled his full rest of his career, but he will walk away a fucking very rich man, a richer man than Celtic could make him, probably. And that, I think maybe it's that his age and stuff like that. Just I'm never going to get a deal like this in my life again. To walk away.
But why? Like just looking at you.
What's the money? What's the money he's on? Sorry, Paul, to interrupt you. What's the money he's on in Spurs? Out of curiosity.
I say, Terence, he'd be on about 15, 20. I say, would he, Mark? 20?
I don't know what anyone even in the live chat know what he would be on. I don't know. Some fella said he'd be on about 8 or 10 million a year. I don't know how true that is. I haven't a clue.
Yeah, about 10 to 15, Terence, I say he'd be on, but yeah. Right, but Celtic came close to matching that, though, Mark, didn't we? You know?
But my argument would always be, Paul, Celtic were giving him a 3-year contract, right? And I'm just been hypothetical here. If he gets the bullet from Spurs after 6 months, right, they're going to pay him a percentage of the contract. And we say he's on 15 million. And they say, we'll give you the bones of nearly half it, or he's on 16 million, so he gets 8 million, right? And Celtic are willing to offer him 6 million a year, 5 million a year, right? And he's here for 3, and he's here for 3 years, and he stays the full term. Like, 3 6s is 18, like.
But should the manager be the richest guy at the club, the most well paid? You see, I mean, even getting back to Lowell, I mean, I'm not dragging it up again, we've been on about him enough, but I mean, how many years was Peter Lowell the main earner out of Celtic?
I think the manager should be, or he should certainly be on par. He should certainly be on par, Mark. Definitely should be on par with. He should be on par or very, very close to the CEO. But he's one of the most important. He's the most important person in the football side of things. Because basically, if the football team goes pear-shaped, he's responsible for it.
Well,
If the fo- if the fo-
I think a player should be your highest paid earner at a club. I think he should be a player and probably like your star man, what I keep going on about, pushing your boat out and signing a player. I mean, you go to Real Madrid, look at the wages in Real
that's what I'm
Madrid
saying.
pay
Like,
people.
yeah, like
Look at the wages they pay in England. You
Manchester
can't
City,
tell me
man.
the CEO. You can't tell me the CEOs and managers are getting more paid than players at these clubs. No way.
Oh no, they're not. No, I agree with you. They're like the Man City boys and all this. Like I 100% agree with you.
Sure, Rashford for United. His new contract, he's going to be on 375 grand a week. I don't think Ten Hag will be on that kind of wage for Manchester United.
Townsend's getting more than that in the sick.
Terence, man, you'll have to fucking tell me about who you're getting your six.
Townsend's on that encro chat doing Bitcoin and that.
I'm gonna fucking sick in September, right? That's what I am. Fuck's sake. I have to get a knee replacement. You know? That's me fucked.
How long you got to be off work for with that?
2 months.
We can do podcasts every day. Get you punting weed or chinger that out there and get you some money in.
2 months.
Still, you know what I'm doing, ginger heat at Wayne's.
You know, Jesus Christ, man.
You'll be all right. You're well up the ladder now with the Spar group. You'll be fine. No fear.
That's a bad word, but well up the ladder. He fell off a ladder and fucked his leg no that long ago.
No, yeah, exactly, man. Yeah.
Aye.
You know, but like, just before we finish, right?
Johnson scored for Ireland.
Yeah, he did. I just said that in the podcast, man, there 2 seconds ago.
No, I just saw Jabber putting it up.
If you're not playing Gibraltar, but you could get 11 fellas together would beat Gibraltar, like. Do you know what I mean? Like, start push the boat up in that one, like.
You know, like before we go.
Did the team for Gibraltar will be Brendan Rodgers? That Red Imps. It is first game in Europe. Lincoln Red Imps, isn't it? I think I make people stay in Fairhall than there is in Gibraltar. and they beat Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, Lincoln Red Imps. That was it. 1-0. Remember that? Yeah. His first game in Europe.
We played in the National Stadium. You could see the rock of
Gibraltar.
Yeah, like if you see we're all about fucking Ange and stuff like that. Like, but this being Ange's last kind of hurrah to big club, like, you know what I mean? Does Rodgers maybe see that at Celtic? That this is his last chance at a big club?
No,
definitely not.
Rodgers is younger than that Bodo manager.
Late 40s, early 40s.
I think he's no long turned 50 or 51 or something.
Yeah.
I mean, Rodgers has got another.
But what I'm trying to say is, like, would Rodgers be stupid enough to do the same thing, Mark?
I don't think so, Paul.
That if a club came in for him, would he jump ship again? Would he be that
stupid?
God,
yeah.
Or
100%.
He'd stay for the 3 years and see how it goes?
Honestly, I don't think Rodgers would do what he'd done before unless it was like a top level team.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, fair dues. Leicester were a mid-table team. He'd been down there and he'd done well for them. Right, fair dues have been relegated. I don't think Rodgers takes a derry for that. I really don't. I don't think it's his fault.
Well, I said that to you, Matt, last week. I said that to you.
Aye.
They were caught. They're part of the Malaysian Airways, and their main business, Terence, was the duty free.
I think that,
you know, they had no money coming in over COVID from the city, and then they had no money coming in from
it was hard to sell drugs in that team, wasn't
it? Well, the owner dying in the helicopter crash, I'd say, was a massive issue in that, because his kids were running the club then, like.
I think the son is being badly advised as well. I say him, the son. I don't think he has a clue what he's doing. The son, you know.
Most of them don't, Paul. Let's be fair about it. You know, you can't. If you can't. I don't know anything about it, but I'm sure you can't run a football club the same way you run your own business. it's completely different. It's like people who I were here saying before when the Spurs manager got the other job. Oh, if you got offered 10 grand more from a job the exact same as you do the same. It's you can't compare like with like, because if a football manager gets the bullet next week, he's gonna get probably half his contract paid up. If first of all, if I went from my company to another company and I wasn't and it was 10 grand more a year, but they couldn't basically secure. I couldn't have a secure basically job. I wouldn't leave.
I said that our week on the podcast there.
Yeah, you were saying that about. I was saying that about
Jonas. It was I was talking to. Would you
Jonas. Yeah, he was a painter. Jonas was saying about the painting crowd he does or something like that. So that was a completely unrealistic statement that people were making. As a football manager will get paid massive compensation if they get fired. If anyone working normal Joe Soap was working and they get the bullet, they're not going to get. Oh, we'll give you half a year's salary as well, just because we fired you. No, you'll just get the bullet and you'll be out the door.
There's £50 million to go. We'll put you on gardening leave and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean,
that annoys me. And a day I've had a few pops at people in the forum, and they try to compare that. Or
you can't compare like with like there.
It's not an everyday job,
because it is a difference. Because if somebody said to you, Terence, look, Terence, come and work for us, right?
But no security, I wouldn't go.
No, but we need security, Terence. But seen 18 months or 2 year time. We'll give you £2 million.
But that's the same with me, Mark.
Do you know what I mean? You're off. You're off. Suppose because I'm getting £2,000 a month or whatever you're getting in wages. But I'll go there. I'll get £3,000 a month after him, and then if you pay me off in 2 years, I'm getting £2 million.
Yeah, that's different.
But that's why you can't compare football to
real life.
Working men.
My job,
you can't really do that.
No, and it was a stupid analogy to try and put the two of them together because it made no sense.
I totally agree with that, Terence.
I'm with my job now, 18 years, going on July, and fucking 18 years in sales. So my name would be out there in sales, like, because I'm on the road, like the people word of mouth, like, would get out, like, and I've been offered loads of jobs in sales.
Only
but
fans.
It's just the security of me being in my job 18 years. I wouldn't trade it, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Paul. The football world is not the same as the normal world where normal people do their daily work.
Exactly.
You can't compare it, like.
You can't, Paul, because there you're getting in for your operation in your knee, right? Without getting in your personal business, you've had problems in the past with your stomach, that you were off work for a lot of times and stuff, and then you felt a bit, how am I going to approach this? That I need time off for getting my knee done. Fuck work. Right? Would a football player be worrying about his getting paid? Would his job be safe and stuff like that? If he was getting an operation in his knee. So you can't compare football to
real life.
Anything in real life, any other job in the world. Do you get what I mean? It's like a boxer. A boxer can fight twice a year and make £50 million if he's exactly. Where a football player can play like Ronaldo and get £1 million a week. And it drips down and you eventually get to like our kind of level where it's just guys trying to make a living. So if you're getting offered these opportunities, you need to look at the long term, mate.
100%.
Football's getting disgusting though with the amount of money that's being thrown around the fight. It really is. Like, in this, we were talking there earlier today about Saudi Arabia. Like, look at the money they're throwing around there. Like, for like.
But they've got the money, Paul. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Paul, honest to God, man, see if I'd ended up years ago, like Dermot Desmond or fucking Tony Montana or something like that, and you had millions and billions of pounds, right? How good would it be to buy Celtic and just do that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, money is ruining the game, but Dermot Desmond could probably finance Celtic himself to get us onto a kind of European level. But that's not the way we want to get done. It's got to be sustainable. Look what happened to the Huns when they were trying to chase the European dream and stuff like that. But we're a well-run club. We've got enough money to keep us in an even keel and well in front of everybody else in Scotland. That's what we need to build on.
But I'd say, Mark, like, in 20 years' time, like, are people like Dermot Desmond still going to be involved in football, or is it going to be
I fucking doubt it, Paul. About 112 by that. It'll be like Mr. Burns out of The Simpsons by that time, bud.
No, but I'm saying those type of owners. Do you know what I mean? Those type of owners that would
There
pass.
probably will be, Paul.
You know.
But no, I mean, see, even unless a big conglomerate or something like that, you and Terence know more about this stuff than me. Unless some kind of big conglomerate business tries to take over, like a Celtic or somebody else, right? But instead, it's going to be Paul, don't it? Because he's like the finances that they're trying to, the way they want clubs run. It's not going to come down to who's getting the richest owners. It's going to come down to who makes the most money as a club. Without getting subsidised and stuff like that.
That's what you said, Mark.
Celtic are a great positioning for that.
Remember you said that, Mark, that even if we did get bought by the fucking Saudi Arabian thing like that, we still have to live within our means.
Aye. The first you get it's like
for 100 million. Do you know what I mean? When we're taking in.
But why? But see if Dermot Desmond if Dermot Desmond wanted to kind of go that kind of route, he could like, what's it, Sandy Beach Resort or something.
Sandy Lane, yeah.
He could have that as a sponsor. That's the main Celtic sponsor, and I'll give you 500 million a year for that.
Did you hear about Sky Sports today with Chelsea?
No.
Chelsea wanted their sponsor. Shirt sponsor, their main shirt sponsor, to be the new BT Sports, Paramount Plus Sports, on their shirt sponsor.
Right.
And Sky Sports put in an objection to the Premier League because they're the main sponsor of the Premier League. And if someone had a shirt sponsor of their opposition on it, Sky Sports would cut their funding and the Premier League with this.
That's a bit like the Huns with that cinch, isn't it?
That cinch, yeah, that was this.
But unless surely Paul, I don't know.
What I'm saying is, Mark, look at the difference, right, between the Premier League and Sky Sports, between the Scottish League and Rangers. The Scottish League let Rangers take the cinch off the branding in Ibrox.
Aye.
Sky Sports wouldn't let that down there over that. You know what I mean? It just shows the level that the SPL let Rangers do. Like, do you know what I mean? You see it nowhere else. That's why I think Chris Sutton will be in Ibrox next season, Mark, when he's doing the commentary for Sky next year. They won't let Rangers pull the strings with them,
Oh, I don't know, Paul. They let them do it all the time. I mean, we're talking about covering up sponsorship stuff and it's just absolute petty nonsense, Paul.
Yes.
See sponsors are putting money into the game. That's.
Yeah, but is he going to be there now that Douglas Park is gone from the club now? Are they going to be there next season?
Aye, probably. Because they've got the sponsorship deal with motor group and still that, Paul. Stuff like that out there will be tied up for years to come. That's even going back to like Mike Ashley stuff and fucking, what was the other boy's name? Charles Green. All these contracts that rolled on for years and years.
Jesus.
And that's what it is.
Right, lads, I say we let it there.
Fucking over 3 years, man. Terence was late. I didn't want to mention it, but Terence was late.
I wasn't. Yeah, I was late. I was putting the small fella to bed. Well, judging on the shy talk I heard there for a while, I was probably better off being late.
Must be one of the longest podcasts on YouTube, isn't it?
Oh, would you? And there was like a good 45 minutes talking about football as well, like.
45 minutes.
Paul with fucking racist gingerisms.
A new era, lads. A new era begins. The Brendan Rodgers era. It's
lovely.
So have I convinced you, Ter?
No. But you have to realise one thing about me, right? I am a very, very, very bitter individual. Very. And I do hold a grudge. And I just cannot I can't abide by what was done by the two boys, by Rodgers and the Spurs guy. I can't abide by them. I just can't. I hope he does well for Celtic, but I prefer he wasn't. I prefer he wasn't. I prefer he wasn't there. I prefer he wasn't there.
See, honestly, mate, I feel kind of the same way. I've said it. I think he's a bit out of the available people and the realistic available people. I think he was the best man for the job.
Mm-hmm.
I think
100% agree with that.
I think Celtic could go into bigger and better things under him, but it's still my heart's still after what you're talking about, Terence, the way you left and stuff like that. It's just
it leaves a bad taste in the mouth, Mark. It leaves a bad taste in the mouth.
It's a big statement by the club to replace a good manager with a top manager. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, Paul, and that's the thing about it. He is a top manager.
Yeah, it is, Mark.
I mean,
yeah.
See, the current Spurs manager, as Terence likes to call him, Brendan Rodgers could have probably maybe got that job if he. I mean, he spoke to about it. There was a chance of him getting it, and who knows if Brendan Rodgers had pushed that. All right, I want this Spurs job. Blah blah blah. He would have got it. But
he did, Mark, and that's one of the reasons why they approached Curtis Davis, is because the interviews with Brendan Rodgers.
I see. I put that on my Discord. Somebody tell me.
That's why Curtis Davis came to their attention, because of the interviews with Brendan Rodgers. And maybe Brendan Rodgers, Mark, didn't think the Spurs job was for him either. Like, you know what I mean? You know.
Well, it's the thing about it is, Paul. But I mean, we slag off Peter Lyle for some of the stuff he done, but fucking that Daniel Levy. That Daniel Levy puts Berlusconi. He puts Berlusconi to shame with the way he run that. You know, the club.
Shudakeski is Ange's first signing as Tottenham manager. He was on
loan.
Who
cares? Who gives a shit, like?
But he was on loan there last season.
He was on loan last year.
Done by the club. Do you know what I mean?
He's already been there. They had an option to buy, and so they took up that option. Right, so right away, right, so that was it. But where is it? Please, Paul, a right winger, isn't it? So Ange's not coming back for Maeda. He's not coming back for Abada. Do you get what I mean?
But we had this discussion before. People were saying, we had it when Rodgers scarpered. We had it when Gerrard left. They don't like, people have this notion that, oh my God, we're going to lose Kyogo, we're going to lose the Tate, we're going to lose fellas. We're going on the live chat or the forum, and I hadn't been talking much, and I'd been reading stuff, and I kept seeing this Carter Vickers, and eventually I was like, sorry lads, he's been loaned out 7 times by Spurs. Spurs got rid of him. He's 6 foot. He's not required. He's not deemed a centre back in the Premier League.
It was the club that got rid of him, not the managers. Do you know what I mean?
I'll be amazed if Carter Vickers ever plays in the Premier League, to be honest.
Yeah. He's been loaned out 7 times by Spurs. He's about 6 foot or something. He's a cracking player. For Scotland, he's a cracking player. But what I'm saying is, he's not what they consider a centre back.
Yeah, exactly, Terence. Yeah.
Do you know, people are assuming that they're going to come in with a 30 million bid for him. No, they're not.
No.
There's much chance of coming in for me for 30 million, and I ain't playing centre back either.
There's one player that I think Ange will come in for, and if he does come in for a player, I'm not saying he will, but there's only, and I think that'll be Maeda, just for the press, just for Ange's style to play, the press, Maeda.
If there's anyone who goes for Paul, it'll be Hatate. That's the only one who can realistically so.
Or AJ. I don't know who Spurs right back is, but he must be shit hot if he's not going to be interested in
Spurs right back, Mark, is what's his name? That Croatian fella with the curly hair. What's his name? He was with Inter Milan.
Perisic, is it?
Perisic, yeah.
Because he was. But listen, as Michael said there, without delaying this any longer, as Michael said there in the last time we went near on, that's fine. They can go for all these players, but they're all on long contracts.
Aye, and you're paying serious money for them. And
Alistair Johnson's only in the club 6 months, like.
Aye. That's
so they can go for them.
If Spurs or Ange, if Ange goes down and says to Spurs, that right back we brought in January, what a player he is, blah blah blah.
Give us 30 million.
Spurs will look at him. But fair dues. And as you said, we want 25 million.
Edward. Do you know what I mean? We put on the back, you know.
So we want 30 million, and that'll. He's got 3 years left or 2.5 years left in his contract. We want 30 million if you want him. Simple as that.
Exactly. That's it, lads. Marky, I'm gonna close it down. because we could go on
Right,
for
you
another
bother.
hour.
Right, brilliant, Paul. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for coming on, Terence. Everybody
worries.
that joins the live chat, hope you enjoyed it. I don't know when we'll be back. Maybe day one later on the week, Paul. Terence,
Yeah,
fear about.
we take progress there when
We'll
stuff
just
happens. I
we'll
think
just pop up when
it's
anything
kind of early
happens.
days yet, like when stuff is going on. Like looks
Aye.
like I say news will be coming out now fast enough now that Rodgers is in. Like we're going to learn more about
I
signings.
think it'll be a signing this week. I think it'll be I don't know if it's going to be the wee Norwegian guy or no, but I think there'll be a signing announced this week. Just
Is
to
that not
keep
done?
but it's not. Well, it's done, but no officially kind of thing. Terence, for what I know.
All right.
Do you get what I think?
Yeah. He hasn't been presented, so to speak.
I think he's away on a lad's holiday. To be quite honest, the way you're
Yeah, he's
reading
on a
and stuff.
holiday.
And,
Yeah, he's in a holiday.
he's away shagging his way through Europe or whatever. And whenever that's done, he'll be off for his medical and sort that out.
As opposed to just travelling around Europe.
Chasing gingers down.
Oh, lads.
The ginger hunter. But
Right.
thanks very much for everybody listening live. As I said earlier on at the very start, the views and the subscribers for the last podcast, we really, really appreciate that. Numbers have been fantastic, and we're just glad that you all enjoy it. If you know how, please leave a comment, and if you're not subscribed, please do it and hit the like button. Hail, hail, lads. Good night and God bless.
Cheers. Because I have to go there. I'm in Boston there since 9 o'clock.
I've been to the toilet twice.